Chapter 764. Apart from you, it's hard for me to fall in love with anyone else, Wuxia said seriously. It seemed that in her heart, there was nothing more serious and important than this in the world. She confessed. Was this a confession? In the end, she still said it. Although she knew that it wouldn't end well after saying it out, her depressed mood was relieved a lot. The big stone in her chest shifted a little, at least she could breathe normally now. However, after she had done this, her heart was filled with guilt. She put down the chopsticks in her hand, like a child who had done something wrong. She looked at Fang Yan, who had a gloomy expression, and said, "I know I'm being selfish by doing this. You purposely rushed to Huaqing, especially made such a sumptuous dinner, and then told me that you're getting married. I already understood what you meant. I'm not stupid, and I'm a very scheming woman, right? I know you don't want to hurt me, you don't want to make me wait for too long, you want to solve this problem in a relaxed and casual state. Yes, I have to admit, I've become a problem in your heart." "It's not like that," Fang Yan wanted to explain. "Fang Yan, just like how you understand me, I also understand you." Lu Chaoga interrupted Fang Yan's words. Her feelings were actually the same as Fang Yan's. Fang Yan didn't want her to get hurt, and she also didn't want to put Fang Yan in a difficult position. "You know my feelings for you, so you've been avoiding talking about it. It's good to avoid it, at least it won't make our relationship so awkward. At least there won't be a gap between us, and our cooperation has always been so tacit. But now you've met your destined lady, the woman you want to spend the rest of your life with. You're getting married, and this is something to be happy about. As your friend and business partner, I should say congratulations. Actually, when I heard this news, my heart was very heavy, and I felt very depressed, as if I couldn't breathe. But I still want to congratulate you. You must have chosen a very outstanding woman. You like her, and she also loves you deeply. You two are a perfect match." "You are also very outstanding," Fang Yan said in a deep voice. "Yes, I'm also very outstanding. I've always thought so." Lu Chaoga smiled and said, "After my parents passed away, I was alone. She ate alone, slept alone, read alone, traveled alone, went abroad alone, and then came back to Rosefinch. Under the watchful and guarded eyes of the men fighting for power with them. Many times, I wonder what my life would be like if I hadn't returned from America, if I hadn't entered Rosefinch Secondary. She listened to the Jiang family, married the son of her enemy, and pretended that she never knew about those things. Or was he killed by the father and son of the Jiang family because he resisted, and his body was thrown into the sea? But that is only if. I came to Rosefinch and you also came to Rosefinch. We met and you saved my life again and again. You changed my life, and because of me, you changed your own life. I even think if it wasn't for me, perhaps your father wouldn't have died. This has nothing to do with you. Don't think too much." Fang Yan stopped her. "Fang Yan, I can't help but think. I know how much trouble I've brought you, and I know how many enemies I've brought you. The Rubik's Cube is a devil that tempts people to commit crimes. It makes countless people covet it, and it makes them do the craziest and most inhumane things. I can't protect it, and it has always been you who has been protecting it. Many people wonder why I said that Chao Yan is your Chao Yan, she should be your Chao Yan. How much you've sacrificed for it and how much effort you've put in. Those people don't know, but I remember it in my heart. So, during the 3 years you were gone, no matter how difficult it was, no matter how dangerous it was, I gritted my teeth and persevered. I told myself, Lu Chaoga, you must hold on. They want to defeat you, and they want to take away the Rubik's Cube from your hands. This Rubik's Cube is not only the blood and sweat of your parents, but also the blood and sweat of Fang Yan, because they've sacrificed too much for it. Before I met you, my biggest dream was to avenge my father. I've been looking for an opportunity to let the father and son of the Jiang family get what they deserve, but I know better than anyone that I'm no match for them. If I show even the slightest flaw, I might be killed by them. Do you know? I've even prepared to accept Jiang Zhulio's proposal. Because only then I can have the chance to do what I want to do. And only then can I let down the Jiang family's guard against me. Can you understand that? I've endured that kind of vigilant gaze every day as if they're guarding against a thief, for more than 10 years. Every day, every year it's the same. In fact, I've already given up all hope. I know it's hard for me to fight against the father and son of the Jiang family, but at that time you appeared. You gave me the courage to refuse, and you also gave me the hope to avenge my parents, and indeed you helped me do it. You may not be able to imagine how happy I was when Qiang Longtan and Jiang Zhulu got the punishment they deserved, when the part of Longtu group that originally belonged to my parents returned to me, because it meant that my parents could finally rest in peace in the underworld. They could finally heave a sigh of relief, close their eyes quietly and rest for a while. When they saw that I was living in my enemy's house, They must have been so worried that they couldn't sleep well, right? Fang Yan, I'm 29 years old this year. If I can only live to 60 years old, I've already lived half of my life. The first half of my life I lived for revenge, but what am I going to live for in the second half? In the past, I thought that I wanted to build an economic empire for you, and I wanted you to have the strength to fight against any enemy. No matter if your opponent was the Jiang family or any other family, Chao Yan would always be your strong shield. I wanted Chao Yan Technology to become the world's #1 energy company, and I wanted you to become the richest man in the world. I thought I could do it, and I never dared to slack off. Because this is what I promised you, so I must do it. Actually, you don't have to do that? You don't have to work so hard? Lu Chaoga smiled bitterly and shook her head. Fang Yan, apart from this, what else can I do? My parents are gone and my aunt is also gone. I don't have any relatives in this world, and even my friends are pitifully few. Tell me, what should I live for? People have to do something when they're alive, right? They have to have some spiritual support, right? Don't worry, I'm not telling you this to make you change your mind. Lu Chaoga had a slight smile on her face as if she was laughing at herself for saying such words and doing such things. When a man told you that he was going to get married, she jumped out and said that she liked him, loved him, sacrificed so much for him, and was pitiful and lonely. This kind of behavior was really unforgivable. I've said it before, the woman you choose must be an excellent woman, and it must be the woman you love deeply. No matter what, I still want to say my blessings to you. Fang Yan, I hope you will be happy and blessed. Thank you, Fang Yan said gratefully. But, since I said such words and did such things that are hard for people to accept and understand, I still want to ask. I know that if I don't do this, I may not have another chance in the future. Is this the last time I ask you to stay? Or is it an attempt? No matter what, Fang Yan, I want to ask you, do you like me? If it's possible, I think it's good for us to get married. You can focus on what you like to do and you can pursue the martial arts you want. I'll take care of your business, give birth to a few children, clean up your house. We can live here or we can buy a bigger house. I know what kind of food you like to eat, I know what kind of flavors you like, I remember every single one of them. We can live together, not alone. Alone after work, alone for dinner, alone for TV, alone for sleep, alone for wake up, alone for shopping, alone for couples accessories. Chaoga. Fang Yan tried very hard to open his mouth, but he didn't know what to say. Say, okay, let's get married, get off work, eat, watch TV, sleep, get up, go shopping together, buy couples accessories together. Say, let's get married, you'll give birth to my children, clean up my house and take care of my life and make me the happiest man in the world. Or say nothing, walk over and hold her tightly in his arms. Fine beads of sweat began to appear on Fang Yan's forehead, and even his legs began to tremble. This was the most difficult choice he had ever encountered in his life. Whether in the past or in the future, there shouldn't be a moment more difficult to choose than this one. Lu Chaoga nervously waited for Fang Yan's answer, waiting for his final choice. But when she saw that he was even more nervous than she was, she began to feel sorry for him. Why did she have to make things so difficult for a man? She pushed the chair away, stood up, walked over to Fang Yan and leaned over to kiss Fang Yan's lips. She desperately asked for it, putting her lilac tongue into Fang Yan's mouth, twisting and stirring. A long time passed. She pushed Fang Yan away panting and said with tears in her eyes, Fang Yan, I know your answer. This time it's true, I wish you happiness. Chapter 765. Lu Chaochao had been gone for a long time, but Fang Yan was still sitting at the dining table without moving. Love is fulfilling, but love is also a risk? Love is being together, but love is giving up? His heart was in a mess. Fang Yan had never experienced a more difficult choice than this, and he had never encountered something more heart-wrenching than this. He had expected this scene, but he still underestimated Lu Chaoga's persistence. Fang Yan thought that after he told Lu Chaoga that he was going to get married, Lu Chaoga would still expressionlessly say, "Is that so? Congratulations." Because he knew Lu Chaoga, he knew her modesty, was familiar with her self-control, and knew how proud a woman she was. How could she be like an ordinary woman and try to retain a relationship? How could she do something so lowly? But she did it, frank and direct, without any disguise. Lu Chaoga. Fang Yan's heart was heavy, repressed, and also a trace of joy. As a normal man, who could completely ignore a confession of this level of beauty? Fang Yan asked himself in his heart, with an extremely serious attitude. His feelings for Lu Chaoga. What were they like? Do you like Lu Chaoga? Lu Chaoga was like a ripe fruit, beautiful, cool and full of elegance. If it was just based on appearance, any man would find it hard to refuse the favor of such a beauty. Lu Chaoga was very smart, and it could even be said that she was quite intelligent. She controlled a huge energy empire. When Chao Yan technology was just starting out, when Fang Yan left watching because of mourning, she relied on her own strength to deal with various forces, and encountered countless attacks and assassinations. Until now she was still alive, and she made Chao Yan technology grow rapidly. Although it had the support of the Qin family behind it, if it didn't have a powerful ship commander, could this commercial giant ship expand so drastically? Lu Chaoga was not weak. Perhaps in many people's hearts she was known as a schemer. It was also for this reason that he had some conflicts with Fang Yan back then. Fang Yan felt that he was being used, so he rationally distanced himself from the relationship between the two of them, positioning Lu Chaoga as an ordinary friend or business partner. But did he do it? Could he accept Lu Chaoga's selfless sacrifice as a matter of course? Could he take everything she gave him without any scruples? Tangible assets or intangible power? Could he simply and crudely close his eyes and ignore Lu Xiaoga, who was living a lonely life? Apart from herself, she had no other relatives in this world. Not even a single friend. If he pushed her away, what would happen to Lu Xiaoga in the future? Could she still live as usual? Could she still live? The sweat on Fang Yan's forehead increased and became denser. He clenched and unclenched his fists, loosened and clenched them again. He couldn't do it. Fang Yan couldn't take it for granted, couldn't be unscrupulous, couldn't be simple and crude, and couldn't let Lu Xiaoga live alone, like an orphan. Whoosh! Fang Yan suddenly pushed the chair away and stood up. He strode toward the stairs, his speed getting faster and faster. He rushed to the second floor and rushed to the door of Lu Xiaoga's room. Bang bang bang, Fang Yan knocked hard on the door. The door was closed and no one answered. Lu Xiaoga, open the door, open the door. The door was still closed and the person inside seemed to have disappeared. Lu Xiaoga, open the door for me. If you don't open the door, I'll hit the door. As Fang Yan spoke, his body slammed heavily against the door. Fang Yan was an expert in the martial arts world. Although the heart of Tai Chi had disappeared, he was still an expert. Under his heavy impact, even though the door of the villa was made of solid wood, it couldn't withstand it. Kacha. The door broke and an irregular hole appeared in the middle. The lock was broken and the door opened. Fang Yan rushed into Lu Xiaoga's room and shouted, Lu Xiaoga, not in the living room, not in the bedroom, not in the balcony, not in the bathroom. Fang Yan's heart sank. He ran outside and shouted, Lu Xiaoga, where are you? Lu Xiaoga, come out quickly. He clearly saw her go upstairs, so how did she suddenly disappear? Fang Yan searched all the rooms on the second floor, and then ran to the rooftop of the third floor. When he ran to the third floor, Lu Xiaoga was standing on the rooftop with her back facing the railing. She looked at the anxious Fang Yan running over. Her shoulders twitched and tears streamed down her face. When I was 5, I liked to play hide and seek with other children. Lu Xiaoga's eyes were wet and she said in a choked voice, once I ran to the abandoned laundry box in the attic to hide, and my friends couldn't find me. After the sky turned dark, they all went home. I fell asleep in there alone. Lu Xiaoga looked up at the sky, trying her best not to let her tears fall. She tried her best not to let Fang Yan see her crying. Because when she cried, her whole face was red, and she felt that she was very, very ugly at that time. Later I was woken up by my parents' shouts. They called me just like you did just now. They were worried that I would disappear. That was the deepest memory I have of them. After they left, there was no one else. No one was worried that I would suddenly disappear, and no one was like you just now, looking for me and shouting my name loudly. Lu Xiaoga's crying became louder and louder. She shyly covered her face with her hands, and the flood of tears flowed out from the gaps between her fingers. Fang Yan. Lu Xiaoga's voice was sorrowful and she said, don't leave me alone. Otherwise, I don't know why I'm still alive. You idiot woman? Fang Yan's eyes were blood red. He strode over and hugged Lu Xiaoga's trembling body tightly in his arms. Live, of course you have to live. If you don't know why you're alive, then live for me. Fang Yan's arms exerted all his strength, almost squeezing Lu Xiaoga's plump and soft body into his own. If you die, what will happen to Chaoyan technology? What about the Rubik's Cube that your parents tried so hard to leave for you? What about the Longtu that Auntie exchanged her life for? And me? What about me? And me? What about me? If you're not here, who will help me take care of Chaoyan? If you're not here, who can suppress the hatred in Lu Shu's heart? If you're not here, who can help me monitor the ambitions of Lanshan Valley? If you're not here, how can I balance the power of the Qin family? If you're not here, where will I have the capital to fight against a colossus like the general family? Fang Yan, if you're not here, who's going to take care of this villa? If you're not here, who's going to make my favorite food? Who's going to make my favorite cordyceps soup? Fang Yan, kiss me. Lu Chaoga was already out of breath from Fang Yan's embrace, but she still raised her head from Fang Yan's embrace and called out weakly. Fang Yan lowered his head, found Lu Chaoga's lips and kissed her fiercely. Lu Chaoga also responded forcefully. Their tongues stirred with all their might, fighting passionately. It was as if tomorrow was the end of the world. Fang Yan sucked the sweetness from Lu Chaoga's mouth, and his nose smelled her enchanting body fragrance. Her body was so soft, like a ball of cotton candy. Fang Yan's hands wandered around Lu Chaoga's body, stroking her slender waist, and then moved to her plump and perky buttocks. Because he didn't have much experience, and subconsciously felt that this was a very attractive part. So he rubbed it very hard, almost crushing Lu Chaoga's buttocks. Lu Chaoga's body temperature was also rising. She didn't feel any pain at all, she felt like she was about to melt. Her legs had no strength, so she hooked her arms around Fang Yan's neck, letting Fang Yan bear all her weight. Her mouth was still blocked by Fang Yan's and their tongues were entangled. Her breath was heavy, emitting a fragrant smell and seductive moans. The sound was longer and longer, and each time more painful than the last was the best aphrodisiac in the world. Because of the excessive passion, the sea of qi in his dantian once again burned. First it was a little bit of starlight, then it became a prairie fire, turning into a vast sea of fire. Fang Yan's face was flushed, his mouth was dry, and he felt like his body was about to explode. He wanted to conquer, he wanted to release, he wanted more softness. Fang Yan suddenly picked up Lu Chaoga's body from the ground, took 2 steps forward, and then pressed her back against the railing on the roof. His hands were no longer satisfied with patrolling her back, he began to attack the front. Rip! He crazily tore the coat on Lu Chaoga's body, the thin fabric was torn to pieces without any resistance. Lu Chaoga's delicate shoulders were exposed, and her snow-white breasts that were bound by her black underwear were also exposed. The black gauze tightly wrapped the two softness, and the black ribbon outlined them into the world's most perfect figure. They were high and swollen, proudly displaying their extreme seduction, even if they wanted to reject it. This large mass of snow-white tenderness stimulated Fang Yan's blood. He let out a roar that sounded like a wild beast seeking a mate. The sky was dark. When Yu Yer, who had just revealed a corner of her face, saw this scene, she quickly pulled a cloud in front of her to cover her blushing face. Chapter 766. Women often scolded men as animals that thought with their lower bodies. Women would tell countless lies in their lives, but this sentence was absolutely true. However, one thing that needed to be corrected was that most men were animals that thought with their lower bodies, except for those old people who had lost their sexual ability. The fire was burning and the desire was roaring. Fang Yan's body temperature was getting higher and higher, and his face was getting redder and redder. Even his body had begun to emit a hot smoke. His body and forehead were dripping with sweat, and his hair and clothes were already soaked with sweat. Lu Chaoga, who was being pressed against the railing by Fang Yan, finally noticed Fang Yan's abnormality. She hugged Fang Yan's head that was buried in her chest and asked anxiously, "Fang Yan, what's wrong with you?" "Fang Yan, hot." Fang Yan's voice was dull, and his tone carried a scorching heat wave. She didn't notice it when she was under the control of lust, but now that she was sober, Lu Chaoga felt a burning pain in her body, as if a red-hot iron was tightly attached to her skin. Her skin was tender and white, especially her chest, which was softer than the softest dough and whiter than the whitest snow. However, after Fang Yan's rough and somewhat violent torment, squeezing, twisting and burning, her body had already turned green and purple. It looked as if Fang Yan had a penchant for SM, and the beautiful woman at home had just suffered inhumane torture. "Fang Yan, are you okay?" "Let me see." Lu Chaoga wanted to push Fang Yan away, wanting to see what had happened to Fang Yan. But no matter how hard she tried, she couldn't push Fang Yan away. How could her strength be compared to Fang Yan, who had already fallen into a state of madness? While she was pushing Fang Yan with all her might, Fang Yan desperately moved his body closer to hers. He was a piece of burning coal, and Lu Chaoga's body was the glacier that he longed for. Demand. Desperately searching for more. Fang Yan's body knew what it needed, and he was working hard to find it. In this way, Lu Chaoga had to work harder and harder. She couldn't hold down Fang Yan's head. She couldn't push Fang Yan's body away. Her clothes were torn to shreds by Fang Yan. His shirt had long since fallen off without a trace, and the pants underneath were also in shreds. It was difficult to conceal the most private and most enchanting sight. The strap of the black underwear had been torn off because Fang Yen didn't know how to untie it. In other words, he didn't have the time to look for the buttons at the back. With a flick of his finger, the extremely flexible shoulder strap snapped. The broken elastic strap rebounded and hit her smooth and fleshy shoulder, leaving a clear red mark. It wasn't very obvious and it was difficult to find without light. Fang Yen, Lu Chaoga had already confirmed that something had happened to Fang Yen. She was very worried and hugged Fang Yan's body tightly. She shouted anxiously, "Fang Yen, calm down. Fang Yen, don't be impulsive." Because of the current state of the two of them, Lu Chaoga didn't dare to stop them loudly or ask for help. She could only try to lower her voice to comfort Fang Yen. If the bodyguards in the courtyard were alerted and Fang Yingying and Qining ran over, she wouldn't have the face to see them. "Fang Yen, where do you feel uncomfortable? Tell me you feel uncomfortable there, hot." Fang Yan's voice was dry and hard, as if it was very difficult for him to spit out the word. Right now, Fang Yen was indeed in a very difficult and painful situation. The sea of qi in his dantian spun wildly and turned into a black hole. The large burning sea of fire turned into a fire hole. The fire didn't stop but rolled up the black hole and continued to burn. It was as if the whole black hole was burning and burned into a red hole. It was as if it could burn through the sky, burn through the sea, and burn people's stomachs out of sight. Fang Yen now felt the burning pain in his stomach. It was 100 times more painful than being pricked by a needle or being stabbed by a knife. It was a continuous pain and the pain was increasing exponentially. The next pain was always more painful than the previous one. What was worse was that it wouldn't make you feel numb or numb. It was always there, burning your flesh, your bones, every drop of blood and oil in your body. Fang Yen, Lu Chaoga knew that Fang Yen was in pain and asked anxiously, "What can I help you with? I'll get you some water. I'll take you to a cold shower. Your body is very hot, it will burn." Fang Yen didn't seem to hear what Lu Chaoga said. He was just doing what he wanted to do according to his most primitive and wild will. He had already torn off Lu Chaoga's underwear. The silk underwear was simply too fragile. Even if he didn't use any strength, it would still be easily torn to pieces. Lu Chaoga's body was already without any protection. In the process of Fang Yan's persistence, she also understood what Fang Yan needed right now. She stopped struggling and twisting. She just stretched out her arms and gently hugged Fang Yan in her arms. "Fang Yan, if you want, I'll give it to you," Lu Chaoga said in a low voice. Some things, if the direction was wrong, the more you tried, the worse it would be. For example, the current Fang Yan. Fang Yan was a virgin. He was a virgin. He had no concept of this kind of thing at all. Although he had been baptized by some educational films, the actual battle was still very different from the process of imagination. Lu Chaoga felt Fang Yan's anxiety. She reached out and guided Fang Yan into her body. "Ah!" She softly let out an extremely suppressed moan. The two people's souls and bodies were completely fused together. Fang Yan hesitated a little. He felt that he had entered a strange environment. Then he began to crazily attack like a storm. At this time, Fang Yan was like a burning beast, full of lethality and aggression. When Fang Yan opened his eyes, the room was dark. Only a glimmer of light from the gap between the curtains proved that it should be daytime at this moment, and not night as he imagined. Fang Yan opened his mouth but no sound came out. He felt that his throat was filled with sand. Every time he said a word, those words were absorbed by the sand, and he could not spit them out. Fang Yan wanted to get up, but found that all the bones in his body had been removed and cleaned. It was sour, painful, and had a different lubricating feeling than before. He climbed up with difficulty and pulled a pillow to lean against his back. Then he tried hard to recall what happened last night. Lu Chaoga disappeared and I went everywhere to look for her. Fang Yan remembered this scene very clearly. He could even remember his anxiety at that time. She was on the rooftop and I hugged her. I seemed to have taken off her clothes and I kissed her chest. Her chest was very white and her breasts were very big. My body was getting hotter and hotter as if my body was about to explode. Creak! The door of the room was gently pushed open. Fang Yingying tiptoed in, closed the door and turned around. His eyes met with Fang Yan who was sitting on the bed. Fang Yingying's expression was strange and then he rushed over with a face full of surprise, hugged Fang Yan and cried, "Junior Marshal Uncle, you finally woke up. I was worried to death. I was really afraid that you would never wake up again. If that was the case, how would we live? I was also afraid that after you woke up, you would become a vegetable and you would need someone to take care of you. Fang Haohan is stupid and lazy. He definitely wouldn't be able to do such a thing. At that time, the responsibility of taking care of you would fall on me alone. You say, why is my life so bitter?" Fang Yan stared straight at Fang Yan and said, "I slept for a long time. Not very long. Fang Yingying wiped his tears and said with red eyes, I only slept for 3 days. 3 days? Fang Yan's head began to ache. He thought it was something that happened last night. How did he sleep for 3 days? In these 3 days, what happened? Yes, you slept for 3 days. We were all worried. Junior Marshal Uncle, don't be anxious, we can take our revenge slowly. I know that you are under a lot of pressure. I know that you want to avenge the family head as soon as possible. I know what the heart of Tai Chi means to you, the disappearance of the heart of Tai Chi. We are even more anxious than you are. But you must stay calm. You are the head of our Fang family. The head of the family is no longer here, and the teacher hasn't returned. If something unexpected happens to you, how can the teacher and my mother's bodies bear it? Our whole family, we've all broken up. Without you, would the Fang family still be the Fang family? Fang Yin looked at Fang Yingying with dull eyes and said, Is my situation very serious? Very serious. Fang Yingying nodded very seriously. When we saw you, you were lying there naked. Look at your eyebrows, your beard, they were all burnt. Your hair was standing up, like a roasted hedgehog. I was really scared at the time. I thought that you had gone mad from practicing. Junior Marshal Uncle, the heart of Tai Chi is all about naturalness. Don't forcefully touch it, otherwise you will be harmed. You, where did you see me? Fang Yin asked in a low voice. This was the question he was more concerned about. On the balcony of the 3rd floor. Fang Yingying looked at Fang Yin thoughtfully and said, Junior Marshal Uncle, this time's explosion was even more powerful than last time. Last time you only blew up your own clothes, this time you blew up Sister Lu's clothes. Chapter 767. Fang Yingying didn't notice the change in Fang Yan's expression. The more he spoke, the more excited he became. Junior Marshal Uncle, did you realize something again? Did your heart of Tai Chi come back to life? I knew it. Last time it was because of the resonance with Mr. Music Addict's music that your clothes exploded. Is this the same as last time? Where did you and Sister Lu resonate? After a pause, Fang Yingying looked at Fang Yin with a puzzled expression and said, Junior Marshal Uncle, why are you looking at me like that? What kind of expression should I look at you with? You just recovered from a serious illness and just woke up. Shouldn't you be very happy and excited to see me, your only family? I'm very happy. Fang Yin nodded and said, That's good. Fang Yingying was relieved and continued his path of seeking death. You haven't answered my question yet. Where did you resonate with Sister Lu? You have to answer this question honestly because I have a bet with Qi Ning. A bet? Fang Yan's eyelids drooped and he asked aloud. Yes, I said that Junior Marshal Uncle must have realized something about life and nature when he was talking with Miss Lu. That's why the sudden explosion happened. Not only did his clothes explode, but Miss Lu, who was standing with you, was also affected. Qi Ning said there was more to this matter. It was definitely not as simple as the heart of Tai Chi coming back to life. I asked him what the secret was, but he couldn't tell me clearly. Fang Yin looked at Fang Yingying and asked in a hoarse voice, Fang Yingying, what do you want to know? I don't want to know anything. Fang Yingying's expression stiffened and he said, Junior Marshal Uncle, you and Miss Lu, are you okay? Fang Yin was silent. Fang Yingying was a very smart man. He must have guessed something. The Jews say that there are 3 things which cannot be concealed: a cough, poverty, and love. The more you hide it, the more obvious they will be. The more you want to stop coughing, the more you will cough. The relationship between Fang Yan and Lu Chaoge was like a coughing fit that the two of them were desperately trying not to expose themselves. That endless concern, that considerate and warm care, that softness when they looked at each other, that probing and telepathic connection between their words, how could all of these be completely concealed? Fang Yingying could see it, Qi Ning could see it, and so could the others. Lu Chaoge visited Lu Gong several times a year with a whole team of guards. Didn't those people have any doubts? What about her? Fang Yin asked. After he woke up, he didn't see Lu Chaoge. Did something happen to her too? Sister Lu went to the company early in the morning. She's been very busy lately. I was supposed to go out with her, but she asked me to stay and watch over you. She said to call her as soon as you wake up. Sister Lu works very hard every day. She works very late every day before coming back. Fang Yin nodded. He could understand the intensity of Lu Chaoge's work. She was the one in charge of the huge Chaoyan technology. Although the Qin family also sent a large number of elites, they were still the elites of the Qin family. She had to use their abilities and guard against their ambitions. How to balance the two was a very difficult thing in itself. Besides, the energy industry was becoming more and more prosperous, and Chaoyan technology was also changing with each passing day. As Chaoyan's industrial layout grew larger and wider, Lu Chaoge would have more and more things to do. Although there was a saying that the superior had to work hard, at least you had to have reliable people around you. Chaoyan technology was a high-end energy industry, and the Rubik's Cube technology was the life of the entire Chaoyan. From the day Chaoyan was established until now, it had only been a few years. In such a short period of time, who was the confidant you could really trust? It took time to do things, and it also took time to judge people. Do you want to call Sister Lu and tell her you're awake? Fang Yingying asked. Fang Yin shook his head and said, no need. Junior Marshal Uncle, go get me a glass of water. Okay, Junior Marshal Uncle. Fang Yingying trotted to Fang Yin and poured a glass of cold water. Fang Yin took the glass and drank it in one gulp. He looked at Fang Yingying and said, I'll take care of it. I know. Fang Yingying nodded repeatedly. I have faith in Junior Marshal Uncle. There's nothing in this world that you can't take care of. Song transplanting rice was so bad asteriskis, but didn't he get killed by Junior Marshal Uncle with one shot? Fang Yin waved his hand and said, I'm going to rest for a bit. You can go now. Okay. Call me if you need anything. Fang Yingying got up and left. When he got to the door, he turned around and looked at Fang Yin. He blinked his big eyes and said, Junior Marshal Uncle, although I've done something like informing Miss Yi before, you have to believe in my character. I definitely won't betray you this time. Scram. Fang Yin said. Okay. I'll scram right now. Fang Yingying turned around and ran away like a fat rabbit. Fang Yin put the cup of water on the bedside table and began to think of a solution to this matter. I should talk to her first, Fang Yin thought. When Fang Yin heard the car outside, he knew that Lu Chaoga was back. He got up from the bed and peeked through the gap in the curtains. Fang Yingying ran like a lackey to help open the door. Lu Chaoga, who was wearing a silver uniform, came down from the RV. She first stretched out a foot, then her slender, plump and beautiful leg. Her hair draped over her shoulders, and the tail of her long hair formed a phoenix tail shape. Her facial features were delicate and flawless, her skin was as cold as snow, and the tailored uniform cleverly outlined her curvaceous body. She was charming and had an excellent temperament. This woman, Fang Yin thought. She became her own woman. Lu Chaoga walked to the middle of the courtyard, stopped and looked at Fang Yan's room on the second floor. Fang Yin knew that she couldn't see him, but he could still feel that their eyes met in the air. He didn't have to wait too long before Lu Chaoga pushed the door open and came in. She looked at Fang Yin, who was sitting on the living room sofa with a cup of tea, and asked, Are you feeling better? Much better? Fang Yan's throat was still a bit uncomfortable. After drinking a cup of water, he dampened the sand a bit, but the sand was still in his mouth. When he spoke, he could feel the sand rubbing against the inner wall of his mouth. You were in a bad situation. I don't know Kung Fu, so I don't know what happened. Lu Chaoga spoke very slowly, carefully choosing her words in her mind. She tried her best to avoid mentioning that incident, but there were some things that needed to be explained. Your body suddenly exploded, and you suddenly fell to the ground. I was very worried, so I called Hero and the others to help. I know. Fang Yin nodded and pushed the brewed tea in front of Lu Chaoga. You slept for 3 days? I know. Lu Chaoga held the teacup and drank the water, not knowing what to say. Fang Yin also held the teacup and drank the water. His body was like barren soil, needing a lot of water to nourish it. Since he woke up, he had drunk 8 cups of water. The two of them didn't say anything, and the room was quiet. In the past, Fang Yingying and Qining liked to play around in the courtyard, but today they noticed something and also became quiet. The whole world was quiet. Fang Yin slowly finished the cup of tea, put the cup in his hand on the coffee table, looked at Lu Chaoga and said, I know. Before the explosion, something else happened. Fang Yin. Lu Chaoga hurriedly stopped him. I did all of this voluntarily. I don't want to make things difficult for you. I know you have a woman you like, I know you're going to get married, but I still can't control my emotions and I still don't want to give up. Everything is my fault, don't take it to heart. Let bygones be bygones. I can't, Fang Yin said, shaking his head. Lu Chaoga's face was full of guilt and self-blame and said, Fang Yin, I'm sorry, I'm really sorry. I lost control of my emotions at that time, and that's why the things that happened later happened. It's my fault. I'm still blaming myself. I'm sorry. I shouldn't have burdened your heart. Please, pretend that nothing has happened. Pretend that it's all a dream. When you wake up, pretend that nothing has happened. Pretend that it's all a dream. Okay. Fang Yin, I beg you, I know your choice, I don't want to hurt anyone. Don't say you're sorry. Fang Yin looked at Lu Chaoga with a serious expression and said, I've thought about it, I like you. Fang Yin, so, don't blame yourself, I'm the one who should blame myself. Don't say you're sorry. I'm the one who should apologize. But I won't pretend that nothing happened, and I can't pretend that it was a dream. Although there was an explosion in the end, I was awake when I hugged you, I was awake when I kissed you, even when we had sex, I still had my own consciousness. I know what I did and I know why I did it. I won't blame everything on the natural combustion of the heart of Tai Chi, and I can't blame my own selfishness and cowardice. That's not fair to you and it's not fair to me. I like you. Fang Yan looked at Lu Chaoge and said with a serious expression, "From now on, you are my woman." Chapter 768. From now on, you are my woman. This slightly domineering statement moved Lu Xiaoge to the point where tears welled up in his eyes. All the guilt and self-blame in her heart, the indescribable grievances, and the questioning and judgment of her character, all kinds of emotions blocked her heart, making it difficult for her to breathe. However, Fang Yan's "I like you" was like a powerful bomb, blowing all the negative emotions in her body into pieces, and then disappeared without a trace. Fang Yan was unconscious for 3 days, but Lu Chaoge suffered for 3 days. She looked forward to Fang Yan waking up, but she was afraid that Fang Yan would wake up, because she didn't know how to face Fang Yan next. She wanted to give herself more time to prepare, so she handed Fang Yan to Fang Yingying and asked him to watch over Fang Yan. She also asked him to call her as soon as Fang Yan woke up. She was afraid that when Fang Yan woke up and saw her first, both of them wouldn't know how to break that moment of awkwardness. She avoided it first, and when she came back, at least she had made enough preparation and thought about what to say. She understood Fang Yan's choice, and she also knew her position. And she could only treat it as a dream. This was her destiny. In the past, in the future, she would be alone forever. However, the development of things was beyond her expectation. Fang Yan didn't escape, he didn't fear, he didn't pretend to have amnesia. He remembered everything, and he was willing to bear all the responsibility. He was willing to bear it with her. In this kind of thing, it is always men who take advantage. Men are cowardly and run away, and then let women bear all the blame and consequences. Fang Yan looked at Lu Chaoge and said with an unprecedented serious expression, "You also know that I am not a man who refuses to take advantage of others. My code of conduct and moral bottom line have always been very low, but I won't deny it and I can't deny it. I won't pretend that nothing happened. As I told you just now, I like you and you are my woman now. I like your beauty, I like your figure, I like your sexiness, I like your intelligence, I like how you remember every dish I like to eat, and I like how you treat me well. I need you and Chao Yan also needs you. I don't want you to be alone. I have experienced that feeling. During the 3 years when I was guarding my father's grave, I almost didn't talk to anyone else. I felt that I was the only living being in this world, no one to share your happiness, no one to comfort you when you are sad, but in fact, I know that I have people who really care and care about me. My mother is still here, my grandfather is still here, and all of you are still here. My loneliness is something I have forced upon myself, because every single one of them wants me to come home as soon as possible. But you are different. If you are lonely, then you are truly lonely. I cannot bear to let you live like this alone, without even a little support and warmth in your heart. I like you and you like me and we had sex, so you don't have to apologize and blame yourself anymore. If you need to apologize and blame yourself, then let me do it. Whether you did anything wrong or not, you are my woman now, so you should let me bear all of this. Fang Yan, this will make things very difficult for you. I know you are in a difficult position in the middle. Fang Yan reached out to grab Lu Chaoge's hand and said, "Everything is difficult, but I still have to do it. Only by doing my best can I not let down the deep love you have for me. Fang Yan, actually, you don't have to do anything. I've already thought it through. I'll stay in Huaqing for the rest of my life. I'll live in this apartment. I'll help you look after Chao Yan. I'll help you make it the biggest energy company in the world. If you're willing, give me a child. If you are not willing, I will live here alone. I will have a lot of things to do, I will be very busy every day." Lu Chaoge held Fang Yan's hand tightly and said, "I understand your feelings, I know you are there, you also like me, you didn't leave. At that time I won't feel lonely." Fang Yan shook his head and said, "Leave this matter to me, I will take care of it." After a pause, Fang Yan said, "I will talk to her." Seeing the worry on Lu Chaoge's face, Fang Yan comforted her. "Don't worry. Wen Qing is a very good person. I'm afraid that she will hit you," Lu Chaoge said in a small voice. Fang Yan exploded again. Just like the last time at the Maple Leaf Club in Beijing, his clothes had exploded and he had run around in a circle with his buttocks bare. This time his situation was a bit better than last time. First, when his clothes exploded, he wasn't standing in the middle of the crowd. Secondly, at the moment his clothes exploded, he was already naked. Therefore, this result of the explosion was acceptable to Fang Yan. However, after the explosion, Fang Yen couldn't help but think about another question. Why did it explode? Just like Fang Yingying's question. Did I explode because I realized something? Or could it be that he had unlocked some new skills? After he woke up, he carefully tried to feel the heart of Tai Chi. Still nothing happened. What was different was that the unbearably hot gas in the middle of his Qi was gone. In other words, even if Fang Yen wanted to forcibly use his Qi, he wouldn't have to endure the pain of being burned. Fang Yan's Qi also disappeared along with the volcano. That's right, Fang Yan's Qi also disappeared. The area became empty and became a deep, transparent hole. Strangely, the Tai Chi fish were still there. The black and white Tai Chi fish swam back and forth in the transparent hole as if they were alive. However, was this change good or bad? Why hadn't the heart of Tai Chi awakened yet? These days, Fang Yen had been thinking about this question, but because he didn't have the experience of others, he couldn't figure out which one was right. Longtu Building. A champagne-colored Bentley stopped in front of the building. The bodyguard in the passenger seat quickly jumped out to open the door for the man in the back seat, but the man had already opened the door and got out. General Xing looked up at the majestic building in front of him and said to Li Guochang, who was beside him, "I came here a few years ago. At that time, Longtu Group was like the sun in the sky, and it was the most promising energy industry in the whole of Huaqing. After a few years, Longtu Group has become a thing of the past. On the other hand, Chaoyan Technology, which was established not long ago, is thriving and has become the leading energy company in Huaqing and even the whole of Wuxia." Li Guochang sighed softly and said, "Qiang Long Tan was an ambitious and ruthless person, but he didn't expect that he would die in such a humiliating way, and his only son would be sent to prison. I have to say, Fang Yen is really ruthless. It's fine if he doesn't make a move, but once he does, he tortures people to death. The Jiang family has completely collapsed. Other than Longtu Group, the other properties of the family have been cleanly divided up by others. It's said that the Rin family wanted to get involved, but one of their legs was broken by Fang Yen. Only that poor woman, Rin Jin, begged everywhere to get her son out of prison. The problem is, who would give her face now? Jiang Zhulu can only sit in prison for a long time." General Xing shook his head and said, "The flag on top of the city wall will be changed. I don't know if the flag of our Jiang family can be placed on top of the city wall of Longtu Group." Li Guochang smiled and said, "It depends on whether Miss Shangxin remembers the old times. No matter what, she has the blood of the Jiang family flowing in her veins. No matter how she denies it, she is a member of the Jiang family. As long as she agrees, things can be done. After all, the power of Longtu Group is in her hands now. She owns the shares of both Jiang Zhulu and herself, so she has a lot of say." "It's hard to say." General Xing shook his head and said, "What? Does Senior Master not think highly of this trip? If she has the intention to return." General Xing pointed to the building in front of him and said, "Does she need to set the meeting place here? Isn't she just worried that Fang Yan's men will find out and misunderstand? Maybe it's to appease Fang Yan? Miss Shangxin's way of doing things is sly and changeable. It's really hard for us to guess her intentions before we meet her. Yes, we came with sincerity. Let's see if she knows what's good for her." General Xing smiled and said. After Jiang Junling was banished and disappeared, General Xing was the most important young man in the Jiang family. He was the person who carried the flag of the Jiang family. He personally came to Huaqing to meet Jiang Shangxin. Jiang Shangxin naturally couldn't put on airs and brought her secretary to the elevator to welcome him. "Brother?" Jiang Shangxin went forward and held onto General Xing's arm happily. She smiled and said, "Why are you willing to come to Huaqing to see me?" General Xing looked at his younger sister, who was getting more and more beautiful. He sighed and thought that Jiang Zhulu was really unlucky. "Since you don't want to return to the Yen capital, I can only come to Huaqing to see you." "What? Are you not willing?" "Of course I'm willing." Jiang Shangxin smiled and said, "It's best if you can stay in Huaqing in the future. In that case we can see each other often. I want to stay in Huaqing, but I have to get Grandpa's permission first. Moreover, Shangxin is guarding Huaqing for us. As her brother, it doesn't matter if I'm around or not. Am I right?" Jiang Shangxin giggled but didn't respond to General Xing's words. "Miss Shangxin, long time no see." Li Guoqiang also greeted Jiang Shangxin with a face full of smiles. They were already familiar with each other in the Yen capital. "Guoqiang, long time no see. You seem to be looking good recently. Miss Shangxin's complexion is really good and she's getting more and more beautiful. What's that saying again? A person is more beautiful than a flower. Isn't that right?" Chapter 769. The three of them sat down in Jiang Shangxin's office. The secretary served them tea and left respectfully, not forgetting to close the office door. Jiang Shangxin looked at Li Guoqiang and said with a smile, "If someone else were to praise me like this, I would think that they were trying to flatter me. However, I don't think that Brother Guoqiang is a man who likes to lie. Brother Guoqiang, you are getting married soon, right? I heard from Wang Pei and the rest that you and Jiang Yuzhen are getting married soon. The women from the Jiang family are not bad, right?" Li Guoqiang smiled blissfully and said, "That depends on whether young master agrees. If he agrees, we can get married tomorrow." Li Guoqiang wanted to marry into the Jiang family. He was determined to follow the general. General Xing waved his hand and said, "If I could make the decision, I would let you guys get married tomorrow. However, the elders in the family should speak for such matters. Furthermore, you guys have only been engaged for a few days. Aren't you afraid of being laughed at by others?" "What's there to laugh at? It's natural for me to be anxious to marry a wife." The three of them chatted and laughed for a while. The atmosphere became livelier and the barrier in everyone's hearts gradually disappeared. Li Guoqiang then went into the main topic. He looked at Jiang Shangxin and asked, "Shangxin, are you going to settle down in Huaqing?" Jiang Shangxin knew that everyone was going to be honest with each other. Leaning back slightly, she crossed her right leg over her left leg and got into a defensive stance. Smiling, she said, "How can you be so sure about such things? However, now that transportation is so advanced, what's the difference where I stay? Even if I stay in Los Angeles, I can get to Yanjing in the blink of an eye." Li Guoqiang knew that Jiang Shangxin was avoiding the core of his question and didn't want to hide it anymore. He took the initiative to get to the point and said, "Shangxin, what do you think if the Jiang family buys the shares of the Longtu Corporation that you are holding? Logically speaking, this is a private matter of the Jiang family. As an outsider, I shouldn't interfere. However, didn't Shangxin say that Yuzhen and I are getting married soon? We will be a family in the future. Even blood brothers should settle accounts clearly, and it's the same for blood siblings. If you have any conditions, please state them. I believe that the eldest young master and the Jiang family will do their best to satisfy your reasonable requests." "Brother Guoqiang, aren't you treating me like an outsider? You've already said that we're a family. What's the difference between me taking control of the Longtu group and the family taking control of the Longtu group? Am I not a member of the Jiang clan?" Jiang Shangxin's words were sharp and he did not dare to admit defeat easily. "I said the wrong thing." Li Guoqiang patted his mouth lightly and said with a smile, "Of course Shangxin is a member of the Jiang family. It was like that in the past and it would always be like that. Was there a more intimate relationship than the inheritance of flesh and blood? However, Shangxin had misunderstood my intentions. When I said that the Jiang family wants to buy the shares of Longtu Group from you, it was to compensate you personally. You married into Flower City on your own, and you've experienced many things. It wasn't easy for a girl to maintain the family business by herself. She was a member of the Jiang family, so she could give everything she had to the Jiang family for free. But it's not fair to you. Young master must not feel good about it either. Don't you think so?" "Brother Guoqiang, I didn't misunderstand your intentions. I just feel that it's strange. Since you said that I'm a member of the Jiang family, then can't I just take care of the Longtu group? Why did we have to talk about buying it and giving it away? Don't tell me that the Jiang family suspects that I'm not on the same side as them and will do something that will harm the Jiang family's interests?" Li Guoqiang took a glance at General Xing and thought to himself, "This sister of yours is very difficult to deal with." General Xing continued to drink his tea with a smile on his face, as if he hadn't heard the conversation between the two of them. Seeing that General Xing did not speak, Li Guoqiang had no choice but to continue negotiating with Jiang Shangxin. He said, "Shangxin, you know the current situation very well. The Jiang family and Fang Yan are like fire and water. The old master would rather chase Jiang Junling out of the Jiang family than propose a reconciliation. Do you really want to stand on Fang Yan's side and become enemies with the Jiang family? This is a matter between the Jiang family and Fang Yan. I'm only in charge of taking care of my Longtu group. There's no conflict, right? However, most of the shares in the Longtu group are in the hands of Fang Yan and the rest." Li Guoqiang looked at Jiang Shangxin's gentle and charming face and said, "The reason why you're able to sit firmly in the position of Longtu Group is because of Fang Yan's trust, right? So, just because I have Fang Yan's trust and because Fang Yan asked me to manage the Longtu Group, I can't manage the Longtu Group for the sake of the Jiang family? I need to let go of everything that I have now?" "That's not what we meant." Li Guoqiang denied this statement and said, "Even if you sell the shares to the Jiang family will still appoint you to be in charge of the affairs of the Longtu Group. This is because it should have been yours to begin with. What if Fang Yin doesn't agree at that time? Li Guoqiang grinned and said, that will depend on how you consider it. Jiang Shangxin's gaze stopped on General Xing's face. She smiled and said, Big brother, how do you think I should answer this question? General Xing couldn't remain a bystander anymore since Shangxin had forcefully dragged him into this. He looked at Jiang Shangxin and said sincerely, you haven't been back to the Swallow capital for a while. Grandpa wanted to have a good talk with you, but he didn't want to call you back just because of this. He knows that you have been busy recently. However, everyone in the Jiang family still treats you as a member of the Jiang family. Jiang Shangxin looked at Jiang Shangxin and said sincerely, you haven't been back to the Swallow capital for a while. I know that you have some prejudices against the Jiang family. I know some of those things and there are some things that I don't know about. However, just because you have conflicts and prejudices, are you no longer a member of the Jiang family? Are you prepared to stand on the opposite side of the Jiang family on your own? Have you thought about the future? The battle between the Jiang family and Fang Yin, it seems like Fang Yin had the upper hand in the beginning. However, at that time his opponent was only Jiang Junling, a member of the Jiang family. Now, a long time ago his opponent was the Jiang family, the entire Jiang family. Based on Grandpa's character, would he tolerate Fang Yin slapping the Jiang family's faces and kicking their butts? General Xing's gaze was sincere and his attitude was amiable. With a worried look he said, you have a good relationship with Fang Yin and Fang Yin supports you in controlling Long Tu. In the short term this is very beneficial to you. However, when the Jiang family really launches an attack on Fang Yin, when the Jiang family tramples on Fang Yin, what will you do then? Shangxin, you can reject me. You can also tell me that you will consider it again. However, have you thought about how you will answer Grandpa's question if he personally talks to you about it? Seeing that Jiang Shangxin was silent, General Xing patted her shoulder and stood up. He said, I still need to stay in Huaqing for 2 more days. You have 2 days to consider. Shangxin, no matter what, we are a family. Your surname is Jiang and the blood of the Jiang family flows in your body. General Xing looked at Li Guoqiang and smiled. Guoqiang, let's go back first. Let Shangxin have some peace and quiet. Okay. Li Guoqiang stood up as well. He looked at Jiang Shangxin and said, Miss Shangxin, don't put yourself in danger. It is not easy for women to do things, and it is even more difficult to do things well. Think about it, Fang Yin has only been working hard for a few years. How can he be compared to the Jiang family who have lived for hundreds of years? If the Jiang family really wants to take action, it is just a matter of charging forward. I will consider it carefully. Jiang Shangxin nodded and said. Jiang Shangxin stood up and sent General Xing and Li Guoqiang to the elevator. General Xing turned around and looked at Jiang Shangxin. He said, Shangxin, the Jiang family owes you an official apology. In the past, I stood up and said this to you on behalf of the Jiang family. I am sorry. In the past, the Jiang family let you down. In the future, it will not happen again. Jiang Junling waved his hand and said, you don't have to send me off. I know that you have been very busy recently. The elevator door closed. Jiang Shangxin was still standing at the entrance of the elevator in a daze. Could the Jiang family still be trusted now? Fang Haohan had been living a happy life, but Li Ye had been living a miserable life. Fang Haohan was happy because he could be by Li Ye's side all day, but Li Ye was unhappy because Fang Haohan had to be by her side all day. She had wanted to chase Fang Haohan back many times, but her godfather, Du Qing, did not agree to it. He said that Fang Haohan was an expert that he had specially hired to protect her. Looking at Fang Haohan's skinny body, he really did not look powerful. The typhoon season in Huaqing was coming. If there was a slightly stronger typhoon, Fang Haohan would probably be blown away, right? Li Ye started to look forward to the arrival of the typhoon season in Huaqing. Ever since the Qing-Hong internal conflict, Du Qing rarely took care of the Qingyun Corporation's matters. Some of the specific matters were handed over to Li Ye and her subordinates. She would only show her face when faced with major decisions. Therefore Li Ye was very busy. She had just attended a banquet and was preparing to return to the company to handle some matters. She sat in the back seat of the Mercedes-Benz while Fang Haohan sat in the front passenger seat. Xiaoya, if you are tired, close your eyes and have a good rest. Fang Haohan, who was sitting in the front row, said gently. You have worked for 13 hours and 25 minutes straight today. Fang Haohan, Xiaoya, feel free to speak your mind. Although I am your bodyguard, I am more willing to be your nanny. I want you to promise me something. Not to mention 1, even 10,000 will do. Don't call me Xiaoya. Chapter 770. Why can't I call you Xiaoya? Fang Haohen's face was filled with confusion as he asked. Because I don't like it, Leah said snappily. She was really going crazy. Just who was this man? I already said that I don't like you. Why do you always, don't understand? But, Fang Haohen's face was filled with grievance and said, I can't just call you my wife, right? Isn't that not good? Leah only felt a surge of hot blood rushing to her head. If she had a kitchen knife in her hand, she would definitely chop up Fang Haohen, this idiotic and narcissistic ribs, and make soup. She would not drink that pot of soup, she would feed it to the dogs. Tell me, how could there be such a hateful man in this world? What? Are you kidding? Who would want to be your wife? Leah was tall and beautiful and was at the best age for a woman. She was the goddaughter of Qing Hong and Du Qing, and was now in charge of all the affairs of the Azure Cloud Group. Whether it was the disciples of Elder Qing Hong or the rich young masters outside, they all admired and flattered her. There were many men by her side, and there were countless outstanding men. Although there were no other men who could move her heart, but it was impossible for her to marry a weirdo like Fang Haohen, right? Leah tried her best to calm the anger in her heart, and looked at Fang Haohen with a serious expression and said, Fang Haohen, just call me a hero. Fang Haohen grinned. That's what my friends call me. The friends Fang Haohen was referring to was Fang Yingying, because only Fang Yingying called him a hero, and he also called Fang Yingying a hero. Every time they called each other's names, there would be a wonderful feeling that there were only two heroes in the world. Fang Haohen, of course, Leah would not call him a hero. In her heart, Fang Haohen and a hero were not even close. In fact, they couldn't even be compared to the outstanding people in Green Red Army, who had dense tattoos all over their bodies, drank wine and ate meat, used gunny sacks to store money and shot people with bullets. I know. You are Fang Yan's junior. He is my junior martial uncle. Fang Haohen said proudly. Yes. I know he is your junior martial uncle. I don't care what your relationship is. When Leah spoke, there was a sense of anger as she gritted her teeth and said, I know my godfather values Fang Yan very much and values the cooperation with him very much. So, when something happened to Qing Hong some time ago, he asked Fang Yan to help, and asked you to protect us. You were supposed to be by my godfather's side. But his health hasn't been good recently, so most of Qing Yun's affairs have been taken care of by me. Godfather was worried that I would go to the company alone, so he sent you to follow by my side. I am very willing to protect you. Fang Haohen looked at Leah with a face full of love. This move was taught to him by Fang Yingying. Fang Yingying told him that a strong woman would become a clingy man, and when dealing with a woman he had to be clingy. Of course, when doing this kind of thing he had to be skillful. Words of love were like throwing them out without any cost. No matter what her reaction was, he had to act affectionate as if he was thinking that way in his heart, and that he was a man who loved her deeply. Fang Haohen felt that Fang Yingying's teachings were very correct, and he also felt that he had learned very well. Xiaoya, don't worry, as long as I'm here I won't let anyone hurt you. If the enemy comes I will definitely use my sturdy chest to block you behind me. Unless I die and they step over my dead body, even at that time my reluctant soul will still hug their legs tightly so that they won't be able to hurt a single strand of your hair. As expected, Leah's expression changed. From white to red, from red to purple, and from purple to black. She's shy. Fang Haohen thought happily. I've seen a movie called Ghost. It's about a dead lover who has always been by his wife's side. I'm willing to die for you, I'm willing to die for you. But you don't have to worry, even if I die, I will learn from the male lead in that movie. I will accompany you by your side and protect you. Fang Haohen. The flesh on Leah's face twitched and her eyelids trembled non-stop. She felt that she was about to convulse and she felt that she could no longer breathe. Xiaoya. Fang Haohen knew that he was about to succeed. Because he saw that Leah's emotions were very agitated. Even when she called his name, her voice was trembling. Oh, that trembling voice. Her trembling voice was so pleasant to hear. Fang Haohen, tell me what will make you willing to leave? Xiaoya, I will not leave you. State your conditions. Leah said. Money? Or women? I can help you arrange it. Xiaoya, do you still not understand my heart? My only hope is to accompany you by your side. I don't have any conditions. I don't want money. I don't want women. No, I want women. I only want you. If you are willing, state your conditions. How can I be with you forever? Xiaoya, don't worry about me. I'll be fine. Leah took a few deep breaths, forcefully, aggrievedly, with tears in her eyes. She swallowed the crazy anger and the urge to kill, looked at Fang Haohen and said, I know I can't chase you away. I know my godfather doesn't want you to leave. but I beg you, when you are by my side, don't speak, don't let me hear your voice. It's best if you don't even breathe. Don't appear in front of me, not even a shadow. Protect me in the dark, protect me in the other car. Am I begging you? Is that okay? That's not good, is it? Fang Haohan thought about it seriously and said, all right. As long as it's your request, I won't refuse. He shouted to the driver beside him, stop the car. Stop the car. The car pulled over. Fang Haohan pushed the door open and was about to get out of the car, but he retracted his head, looked at Liya, who was sitting in the back seat, and asked, then what should I call you? Liya. Is that so? All right, Liya. Fang Haohan nodded, then grinned and said, I will watch you silently from the car behind. Dra. Liya gave the order with a cold expression. As the car left, Fang Haohan stood on the green belt by the side of the road and waved his hand. A black Volkswagen stopped beside him. There were originally 2 cars following Liya. One of them was her car, and Fang Haohan was supposed to be sitting in the front passenger seat. The other car was a secret guard. This car did not reveal anything, but followed behind Liya's car at a moderate distance. In the black Volkswagen, other than a driver, there were 2 bodyguards in black. These 2 people were both Qing Hong's experts, and also Du Qing's trusted aides. Because there was already someone sitting in the front passenger seat, Fang Haohan opened the back door and got in. Seeing that the 3 men in the car were all looking at him strangely, Fang Haohan waved his hand indifferently and said, you insisted on inviting me to a movie. In this kind of situation, can I go to a crowded place like a movie theater? This kind of Missy's temper needs to be taught a lesson. Of course, don't tell her this kind of thing anymore. After all, Xiaoya's personality is not bad and she has good intentions. Girls are thin-skinned, you guys understand? We understand. We understand. The younger man with a crew cut chuckled and agreed. The middle-aged man with an unshaven beard glanced at Fang Haohan and said, Miss is sitting alone in the car in front, will anything happen? She should be fine. Fang Haohan said with a smile. Aren't the few of us still following behind her? If there's an accident, we can rush over in a few seconds. The middle-aged man looked at Fang Haohan worriedly, but did not say anything. He did not know where Fang Haohan came from, but it was said that boss Du Qing invited him from the outside. An expert. Gu Hutu and his brothers had been secretly suspicious of Fang Haohan's identity. With his figure, he looked like he could be blown away by a gust of wind. How could he be considered an expert? Why did the experts these days have such serious water leakage? However, since it was boss Du Qing's arrangement, they could not say much. They had followed Du Qing to conquer the world, and after decades they had a kind of worship for Du Qing. Being able to survive in such a harsh environment, was there anything in this world that boss Du couldn't predict? The others did not speak, so Fang Haohan did not speak either. He lay on the chair, closed his eyes and thought about his lyrical performance just now. There should be no problem with his words. He firmly followed Fang Yingying's style of being shameless. There should not be any flaws in his acting and expression. After all, he had been practicing in front of the mirror when he had nothing to do, and he really liked Liya, this little girl. He liked her when he saw her photo, he fell in love with her at first sight. After meeting her, he liked her even more because Liya was even more beautiful than in the photo. Moreover, he was 3-dimensional and could be reached with his hand. Her skin was so white, her breasts were so perky, her smile was so beautiful, she knew how to make tea, she liked to read, and she could handle company matters. Fang Haohan thought, after being cheated by junior marshal uncle Fang Yen for more than 10 years, God finally gave him a huge compensation. But why does Xiaoya look at me so strangely? Fang Haohan tried hard to think of the answer to this question. At this time, Liya's Mercedes-Benz turned around at the traffic light intersection. Just as the Volkswagen was about to follow, a white truck rushed over from the T-junction and crashed into the right side of their carriage. Rumble, a bolt of lightning cut through the sky. While no one was paying attention, the torrential rain poured down from the sky, smashing into the city. Chapter 771. After the explosion, Fang Yen stayed in the villa and didn't go out. His body was still weak and he still couldn't figure out the state of his body. He couldn't feel any gas in his energy sea, but there were 2 Tai Chi fish, one black and one white, flying and breathing freely inside. It was as if they were living in a river. Lu Chaoga went to work every day and when she came back she would buy a lot of Fang Yan's favorite dishes, then put on an apron and cook personally. A woman who could go to the living room, cook in the kitchen and sleep in the big bed. Who could imagine that the actual controller of Chaoyan technology, a beauty with a net worth of tens of billions, was willing to make soup for a man at home? Perhaps this was the charm of love. Ever since that honest talk, the two of them never mentioned anything about having a relationship. Of course, they didn't have a second relationship. Their way of getting along was still the same as usual. Lu Chaoga came back from work to cook, and Fang Yen was responsible for washing the dishes. Or when Lu Chaoga came back from work, Fang Yen had already prepared the meal, and then Lu Chaoga took the initiative to wash the dishes. It was quiet and warm, no different from other small couples' families. Tonight, Fang Yen was cooking, so Lu Chaoga wore an apron and washed the dishes in the kitchen. After Fang Yen made 2 cups of hot tea, he sat on the sofa in the living room and watched TV. The weather was sultry and dark clouds rolled. It looked like there was going to be another rainstorm today. It was no longer the rainy season in Huaqing, but there was still plenty of rain every day. One moment it was sunny, the next it was stormy, and when it was raining, the sun would shine. The people of Huaqing had been tortured by this unpredictable and unreasonable weather. Rumble, when the first bolt of lightning cut through the sky, Fang Yen turned and looked into the courtyard. The entire courtyard was illuminated by the lightning. The green lawn, the deep trees, and the dark iron pillars of the courtyard's gate were all clearly visible. Walala, the heavy rain poured down as if there was a god playing a prank above, pouring basin after basin of water down. What a heavy rain, Fang Yen said to Lu Chaoga, who was busy in the kitchen. Lu Chaoga took off the dishwashing gloves on his hands, untied the apron around his neck and put it on the clothes hanger. He looked at the glass window that was being hit by the raindrops and said, "The weather forecast said it would rain today." After a pause, she said, "Do you want to call Grandpa? Doesn't his leg hurt when it rains?" Fang Yan's grandfather Fang Huwei had been paralyzed for many years, and because he didn't exercise for a long time, he suffered from rheumatism. He used to soak his feet with medicine, and his rheumatism was almost healed. In the past 6 months, Fang Huwei had been absent-minded. He was unwilling to soak his feet or let anyone massage him. The last 6 months, Fang Huwei was absent-minded. He didn't want to soak his feet and he didn't want anyone to massage him. Fang Yan had a good talk with him and asked him to soak his feet with the traditional Chinese medicine that he prescribed. He also asked his mother to supervise him every day. He did not know how his legs were doing now. Fang Yan had inadvertently mentioned this to Lu Xiaoga. He didn't expect Lu Xiaoga to keep this matter in mind. Fang Yan knew that Grandpa shouldn't be asleep at this time. He was sleeping less and less, and sometimes he couldn't sleep at night. It was said that when the elderly reached a certain age, they were very afraid of sleeping, worried that once they fell asleep they would never get up again. It was said that when the elderly reached a certain age, they were very afraid of sleeping, worried that once they fell asleep they would never get up again. Fang Yan didn't know if Grandpa had such worries, but he had been worried that something bad would happen. Birth, old age, illness, and death were human nature. However, at the moment when his father died tragically and the old drunkard went to the extremely cold land, Fang Yan really didn't want to bear the pain of losing his loved ones. "Are you stupid? It might rain in Huaqing, but it might not rain in Yanjing," Fang Yan said with a smile. He grabbed his phone from the table, ready to call Grandpa and have a good chat with him. When the elderly couldn't sleep at night, it would be a pleasant surprise if they could receive a call from their children. Fang Yan dialed his grandpa's number. The phone was picked up immediately when Fang Yan's grandfather woke up. Fang Yan was very surprised and said, "Grandpa, why did you pick up so soon?" "Very soon?" Fang Hui's old voice came over and he said with a smile, "I was about to charge my phone but the phone rang." "What's up?" "Nothing, I just wanted to talk to you," Fang Yan said with a smile. He knew that Grandpa didn't want to charge his phone. He didn't have the habit of using a phone before. Ever since Fang Yan bought him a phone for seniors and forced him to use it, he had been holding it in his hand all the time. The day he received the gift, he called his eldest daughter, his second daughter, and his youngest daughter who was far away in Mingzhu. He even called his old friend Lu Gong and talked for more than half an hour. He was always waiting for the phone to ring because his family was on the other end of the line. That was what this old man, who had been a famous soldier all his life, looked forward to the most. "It's raining in Huaqing and Chaoga knows that your legs aren't feeling well, so she asked me to call you to check on you." "Chaoga?" Fang Huwei obviously knew about Lu Chaoga, and he asked in a low voice, "Are you with Chaoga?" "Yes," Fang Yin said frankly. He had nothing to hide from the old man on the other end of the line. There was nothing he could hide. "We're together." As expected, Fang Huwei said after a moment of silence, "Fang Yen, you should know that I've always wanted you to be with that girl from the Yi family. It's been my wish for so many years." "Grandpa, I know." Fang Yen knew that his grandpa had guessed something. The old man's wisdom had always been beyond his imagination. "I'll take care of it." You won't, said Fang Huwei. You've never had any relationship experience. You're like a newborn when it comes to this kind of thing. How are you going to deal with it? High IQ doesn't mean high EQ. Plus, you're neither. You can't betray Wenwan, Fang Huwei said seriously. Grandpa, I know, Fang Yan said without hesitation. However, his mind was a little uneasy, like the cold wind that was whistling past outside. How was he supposed to explain everything to Yinwan? Wenwan, I'm in love with another woman. Wenwan, I'm in love with another woman. Wenwan, you. Fang Yan felt that he was such a scumbag. Feeling terrible, Fang Yan glanced at Lu Chaoga and said, Grandpa, I told Chaoga that she's my woman. I'll explain it to Wenwan as well. How about you scold me instead? Lu Xiaoga didn't listen to the conversation between Fang Yan and her grandfather. Instead, she sat on the high chair in front of the floor-to-ceiling window with the tea that Fang Yan had brewed for her. She looked out at the distorted world that seemed to be crying and howling. Her waist was curvy and her hips were plump, and her posture was elegant and alluring. You bastard, Fang Huwei scolded him. How could you do such a thing? Are you worthy of Wenwan? Are you worthy of the Yi family? Are you worthy of the ancestors of the Fang clan? How can you be so selfish? Where do you want me to put my old face? Fang Huwei had never scolded himself so harshly before, and Fang Yan felt very depressed. He did not utter a single word, silently enduring all of this. Are you pregnant? Soon, Fang Huwei's voice was heard again. If only I were. Our family is so lacking in popularity. Fang Yan, you have a great responsibility. Even if I have to sacrifice my dignity, you have to get a whole family out of this. How am I supposed to face my ancestors otherwise? Fang Yan, the Fang clan is in great danger now. If anything were to happen to you, our Fang clan would be cut off. Grandpa, all right, I'm sleepy and I'm going to bed. You young people should get some rest too, Fang Huwei said impatiently. By the way, tell Wenwan everything. Don't hide a word from her. You think Wenwan? I'm not Wenwan. How would I know if she killed you or castrated you? Fang Huwei said grumpily. I'm hanging up. Call your mother more often. D. The busy tone came from the other end of the line. Fang Yan put away the phone and was about to say something to Lu Chaoga when he saw Lu Chaoga place the teacup on the high table and stand up. Then she opened the door and walked out. When she came back again, she brought back a woman who was drenched. Fang Yan looked at the woman clearly and said in surprise, Shangxin, why are you here at this time? It's raining so heavily. Jiang Shangxin took the towel from Lu Chaoga and wiped the rainwater off her face and head. She looked at Fang Yan, who was sitting on the sofa and drinking tea, and said, It wasn't raining when we set off, but it suddenly started raining when we reached the entrance of the neighborhood. It wasn't convenient for me to drive back then. I could only bite the bullet and rush in. However, I didn't get wet. I drove all the way to the entrance of the courtyard and only got a few drops of rain when I walked a few steps. Lu Xiaoga invited Shangxin to take a seat and personally brewed a cup of tea for her. Thank you. Jiang Shangxin took the tea and said gratefully. Lu Chaoga smiled and said, You guys continue chatting, I'm going upstairs to read a book. Chaoga. Fang Yan called out. Sit down and listen to it. Shangxin's visit this time should be related to the matter with the Jiang family, right? Jiang Shangxin didn't suspect that Fang Yan had planted an undercover agent around her. Even if he really did that, it would be natural. Even she couldn't find a reason why Fang Yan would trust her 100%. She was from the Jiang family and she was Jiang Zhuliu's wife. Lu Chaoga nodded and sat down beside Fang Yan again. The two of them looked at Jiang Shangxin and waited for her to explain the reason for her visit. Jiang Shangxin held the teacup and took a sip of hot tea. Then she looked at Fang Yan and Lu Chaoga and said, General Jiang came to look for me. Yeah. Fang Yan nodded. He wants to buy my shares of Long Tu Group. Yeah. Fang Yan nodded again. Jiang Shangxin looked at Fang Yan strangely and asked, You knew about it long ago? I guessed it long ago. Fang Yan said. He looked at the violent and rapid raindrops outside and sighed. Looking at the time, it's about time for the Jiang family to attack. Chapter 772. Caught off guard, the Volkswagen was hit by the van from the middle. The body of the car creaked, the front of the car shook violently, and then the whole car rolled in the middle of the road. Screech. The hard metal and the asphalt ground rubbed against each other, sparks appeared, but they were extinguished by the pouring rain. Splat, splat. The rain was heavy and heavy as if it had a deep hatred for everything that grew on the earth. The van that rushed over did not turn around and leave after committing the crime. Instead, the front of the car was still pressed against the side wall of the Volkswagen, and the accelerator was increased. The van's engine roared and the tailpipe emitted thick black smoke. They pushed the car's horsepower to the maximum. Everyone knew that this was not an ordinary collision, but a premeditated murder. That is, if the people in the car were still alive. Creak, creak. The body of the car was flipped over and the van slid all the way and then slammed into the green belt in the middle of the road. A large hole was formed on the surface of the car, and the part that was sunken became a huge iron blade, fiercely hitting or stabbing into the passengers closest to them. A large amount of blood flowed out from the gap of the car door, and just as it appeared red, it was instantly diluted by the rain on the road. More and more rainwater gathered, and the deep red turned into light red, and the light red turned into threads, and finally the threads spun on the surface of the water and then disappeared without a trace. However, the blood still flowed out endlessly. As a result, the ground continued to turn crimson until it was as if nothing had happened. At this time, the van that was on top of the Volkswagen began to move back. The driver was a one-eyed man, and his one eye exuded a cold and gloomy aura. Even though they had just done such a thing, it was not able to move him at all. Killing, this was their profession. They were born for this. Clang, the car window opened. A man in black with a hood sitting in the passenger seat took out a silver disc from his pocket, and pressed his finger on the red button on the base of the disc. Beep, beep, beep. The silver disc began to flash with a green light, and the numbers on it rapidly rewound. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6. The hooded man threw the silver disc at the Volkswagen. The silver disc seemed to have an inexplicable attractive power. With a snap, it stuck to the Volkswagen's metal body. Bang! The minivan's reverse speed increased, as if there was a monster in front that was about to crush them. DDD. The numbers on the silver dial went back faster and the alarm grew louder and louder. 3, 2, 1, clang. The door that was attached to the silver disc suddenly detached itself from the carriage and flew towards the sky filled with the rain. Bang! The silver disc exploded, and a corrosive green substance scattered in all directions. When the door came into contact with the green substance, it began to emit thick smoke even though it was made of steel. It began to melt and shrink at a speed visible to the naked eye, and finally disappeared completely. Not only the car door but the green liquid that enveloped the sky, the rainwater, and the air that came into contact with it all turned into white gas and disappeared. For a split second, a vacuum appeared in the air within the explosion radius of the silver disc. There was no oxygen, no rain, only the white smoke that came out from the burning. At the same time that he kicked the metal door into the air, Fang Haohen's body was like an agile hunting dog as he pounced towards it. He did not run towards the minivan that caused the accident, but towards the left turn towards the direction where Lia's Mercedes-Benz disappeared. It was obvious that their target was not him, nor the two thugs from the green-red gang that had their hearts and abdomens pierced by the metal shrapnel. Their target was Lia. And only Lia. Seeing Fang Haohen jump out of the Volkswagen and disappear into the rain in the blink of an eye, the one-eyed man and the hooded man in the minivan were shocked. They had long discovered the existence of the minivan, and their existence was to get rid of the minivan that was protecting them in the dark so that the mission ahead could proceed smoothly. Originally, they thought that they had succeeded. The Volkswagen was knocked to the ground by them, and they even used an extremely expensive genetic medicine. Just one drop was enough to turn a cow into a puddle of liquid. Based on the amount they used, it was enough to turn the Volkswagen and everyone in it into gas. No one in this world would be able to find any evidence of their existence. But why was that guy still alive? Why was he able to escape? There's a survivor, the one-eyed man said viciously. As he spoke, he stepped on the accelerator and the minivan no longer retreated, but instead charged towards the direction where Fang Haohen disappeared into. He's a good fighter. The hooded man's voice was emotionless. He was like a dead person, a zombie. Kill him. Looks like they were prepared. The one-eyed man's voice carried a hint of mockery. That old dog Du Qing sure is considerate to his goddaughter. It won't change the overall situation. After the hooded man finished speaking, when the minivan was moving at high speed, he pushed open the door and jumped onto the roof. He stood on the roof and watched Fang Haohen's running figure. Fang Haohen's body was skinny, and his hands and legs were long. People often said that he looked like a human pole, or a scarecrow that was used to scare birds and beasts in the fields. However, when he ran with all his might, his speed was shockingly fast. Fang Haohen was very anxious. He was worried that something would happen to Lia. He was sent by Junior Marshal Uncle to protect Lia. He could not let Junior Marshal Uncle down. Most importantly, what he said to Lia was true. He said that he would protect Lia. He said that he would not let Lia come to any harm. He also said that even if he died, if those bad people stepped over his body, his unwilling soul would hug their legs. Of course, if they did not step over his body, then there was nothing he could do. Fang Haohan did not know how to love. In his life there had never been such a word. Someone asked him, "Do you like or love Liya?" He would definitely be confused, not knowing what you were talking about. What was the difference between the two? Didn't they all want to be with her? Fang Haohan knew that he was not a hero, but when his woman was in danger, he had to stand up and save her. He didn't think about anything, and he didn't have time to think about anything. At this moment there was only one belief in his heart. No matter what, Liya must be safe. He faced the strong wind and the torrential rain, rushing towards where his hope lay. He saw the Mercedes-Benz, which was parked by the side of the road. It seemed that it had also encountered danger. Thinking of this possibility, Fang Haohan became even more anxious. Bang! His body suddenly left the ground, his body leaped into the air, and then fell towards the wetland in front of him. He was attacked from behind and someone kicked him in the back. His whole body was burning in pain, and his bones felt like they were about to fall apart. Fang Haohan's body slid on the ground, then he jumped up and ran towards the Mercedes-Benz again. He didn't even look back to see who was sneaking up on him. He knew what the goal of those bad people was. They wanted to stop him from saving Liya. But, no matter what, he had to save Liya. This was the most important thing in the world. Fang Haohan jumped over the green belt, ran a few steps and suddenly turned to the left. Whoosh! A big foot appeared in the dark night sky, passing through the place where he was just standing. Clang! The leather boots fell to the ground and the hooded man stood in front of Fang Haohan. He looked at Fang Haohan, who wanted to go around him again, and said, "I know you don't have much time, but you'd better get past me first." Fang Haohan tilted his head in thought, then clenched his fist and ran towards the hooded man. As he ran, the bones in his body creaked loudly. But what was even more surprising was that his body was shrinking. With every step he took, his body would become shorter and smaller. By the time he reached the hooded man, Fang Haohan, who was originally much taller than the hooded man, looked like a child who could only reach the hooded man's shoulder. Bone-shrinking art. Everyone in Swallow Dock knew that Fang Yingying and Fang Haohan were the two disciples that Mo Qingdi took in during his travels to challenge the world's strongest fighters. But what they didn't know was, when Mo Qingdi met Fang Haohan was performing the bone-shrinking skill. Fang Yingying was rolling iron rings, while Fang Haohan was able to pass through a very small iron ring. Not knowing what Mo Qingdi was thinking, he brought them back to Swallow Dock. While teaching them Fang Tai Chi, it was more important to let them display their own strengths. As a result, they became as shameless as Fang Yen. Fang Haohan's fist was also shrinking. Finally, it turned into a child's fist. But the fist was white. The night was dark and the rain was thick. But you could still clearly see the whiteness of the fist, as if he was holding a luminous pearl in his hand. The light of the luminous pearl shone through the gap between his fingers. "Liya!" He shouted Liya's name, then punched the hooded man's chest. Chapter 773. The person who understood you the most would always be your opponent. This sentence would never get old no matter what era it was. Fang Yen understood the Jiang family and knew that the Jiang family would definitely take revenge on him. He even knew that the Jiang family would definitely think of ways to instigate him. Of course, General Xing definitely understood Fang Yen and could guess all of this. Therefore, he met him openly and had no intention of hiding anything. Thinking of this, Jiang Shangxin was looking forward to the battle between these two men. The previous battle between Jiang Junling and Fang Yen ended with Jiang Junling's defeat. What about this time? They were both outstanding men from the Jiang family. Would General Xing be able to take revenge for his brother and defeat Fang Yen? So you already know about all these and have made sufficient preparations. Jiang Shangxin sighed and said. Jiang Shangxin knew that Fang Yen was a smart person. She knew that even if she didn't come, Fang Yen would definitely know that General Xing had gone to see her. Of course, she didn't have the intention to hide it from Fang Yen when she specially chose the Longtu building as the meeting place. Jiang Shangxin knew that although she was in control of the Longtu group now. However, Fang Yen, Lu Chaoge, and Lan Shanggu had a greater share of the Longtu group. As long as they wanted to, they could kick her out at any time. If she hadn't been harmed so badly by Jiang Junling, if Jiang Zhulu hadn't wanted to kill her, if Fang Yen hadn't saved her life, she probably wouldn't have had the chance to take over the Longtu group, right? What kind of relationship did she have with Fang Yen? Collaborator? Friend? Or was it his woman or a dog? Jiang Shangxin couldn't find the exact answer for a while. However, she could tell from the small movements between Lu Chaoge and Fang Yen that Lu Chaoge had already become Fang Yan's woman, Thinking of this possibility, Jiang Shangxing couldn't help but feel her heart warm up. Will I have such a day myself? Jiang Shangxing thought to herself, if he says that he likes me if he wants to, should I submit to him? Or push him away? It's one thing to know, but it's another to be fully prepared. Fang Yin held the teacup and looked at the rain outside the window thoughtfully. No matter who it is, they won't be able to relax when facing a giant like the Jiang family, let alone say that they're fully prepared. It was just that he didn't know how much strength the generals would use in their attacks. Fight to the death? Jiang Shangxin frowned slightly and said, General Xing looks like he's determined to win. I'm sure they've already found a breakthrough point. Is there any problem on your side? I'd rather sacrifice all of Chaoyan technology in order to tear off a piece of the Jiang family's big tiger's flesh. As long as there's blood, the other families will swarm in. At that time, even if the Jiang family wants to stop it, they won't have the chance, Lu Chaoga said calmly as if she was talking about something insignificant. One had to know that Chaoyan Technology was also a giant company, and its development prospects were limitless. He was the child that Lu Chaoga had raised single-handedly, and he was her everything. She was the biggest shareholder of Chaoyan Technology. Based on the current valuation of Chaoyan Technology, Lu Chaoga's net worth was tens of billions of Wuxia dollars. With the development of Chaoyan Technology or the rise of the energy industry, what figure could her net worth reach? For Fang Yin, she was willing to give up everything. Even if she had to sacrifice her last soldier and shed her last drop of blood, she wanted to seriously injure the Jiang family. Jiang Shangxing couldn't help but be moved. She shifted her gaze to Lu Chaoga and said, even if the Jiang family makes a move, I'm afraid they won't dare to do anything to Chaoyan, at least not openly. After all, Chaoyan Technology doesn't just belong to you and Fang Yin, the Qin family also owns a large proportion of the shares. If they want to deal with you, the first thing they'll do is to reach a settlement with the Qin family. To reach a settlement with the Qin family. This sentence made Fang Yin and Lu Chaoga look a little embarrassed. Yes, if the Jiang family were to make a move on Fang Yin and Lu Chaoga, the first thing they had to be cautious about was the Qin family's attitude towards this matter. The Qin family was the biggest shareholder of Chaoyan Technology, and also the big backer behind Fang Yin and Lu Chaoga. Chaoyan Technology was able to take root and grow rapidly under the covetous eyes of a pack of wolves. On one hand, it was because of Lu Chaoga's ability and persistence, and on the other hand, it was because of the Qin family supporting them from behind. Be it the technical personnel or the security forces, most of them were sent by the Qin family. Whether it was the former head of Lu Chaoga's guards, Scholar, or the current head of the guards, Qin Ning, they were all experts sent by the Qin family. In Chaoyan Technology, Lu Chaoga was the largest shareholder, the Qin family was the second largest shareholder, and Fang Yin was the third largest shareholder. According to the proportion of shares, it was natural that Fang Yin and Lu Chaoga had the advantage. For so many years, under the strong support and promotion of Qin Yitian, the Qin family's support and help to Chaoyan Technology was meticulous. The relationship between the two sides had always been very harmonious, and it could be said that they had spent a long period of honeymoon. However, where there were interests, there would be fights. The founding party led by Lu Chaoga and the parachute party backed by the Qin family had always been in a state of open and secret struggle. Lu Chaoga wanted to maintain her leadership position, but the Qin family also wanted to seek a greater voice in Chaoyan Technology. The more rapid the development of Chaoyan Technology, the brighter the future prospects, and the stronger the Qin family's ambition. If someone made a move on Fang Yin or Lu Chaoga, the Qin family would naturally be furious and fight back. However, the Qin family and the Jiang family were giant families with equal power. There were even rumors that the Qin family and the Jiang family wanted to unite by marriage between Qin Yitian and Jiang Junling. Although the two families had never admitted it directly, it was a fact that Jiang Junling and Qin Yitian had been very close for a period of time. If just to say that there was such a possibility, if the Jiang family had greater benefits, for example, after they destroyed Fang Yin and Lu Chaoga, let the Qin family occupy the dominant position of Chaoyan Technology, or directly give the entire Chaoyan Technology to the Qin family, perhaps it was an equally irresistible benefit. How could the Qin family not be tempted? With the disappearance of Fang Yin and Lu Chaoga, who would be the biggest winner? Would it be the Jiang family? The Jiang family was just taking revenge. The Qin family was the biggest winner. They would own the entire Chaoyan Technology. Sometimes, the real enemy was not the opponent who fought with you fiercely with swords and spears, but the comrade who suddenly stabbed you while you were fighting shoulder to shoulder. Because of Qin Yitian and the mistress rumors, the Qin family's attitude toward Fang Yin was extremely bad. Although Qin Tian had never said anything, Fang Yan was not an idiot. Could he not imagine the direction in which things would develop? Wasn't the Qin family's attitude toward him obvious at a glance at the Junling clubhouse? Fang Yan looked at Jiang Shangxin and did not know if she said this unintentionally or to remind him. Could it be that General Xing had revealed something in front of her? Jiang Shangxin was also an extremely intelligent person. When she saw Fang Yan and Lu Zhaoge staring at her intently and pondering, Jiang Shangxin immediately understood what they were thinking. She hurriedly explained, "I just said it casually and I didn't get any information. However, based on my guess, is there really such a possibility?" Lu Zhaoge looked at Fang Yan. She knew that Fang Yan and Qin Tian were on good terms and understood the girl's deep love for Fang Yan. Although Qin Tian was young, he was outstanding and had helped his mother manage the Qin family's business for the past few years. His schemes and victories were dazzling and amazing. Many people said that the Qin family had another spirit fox. Some even said that the essence of the Qin family's thousands of years of spiritual energy had been gathered on this girl. If Fang Yan gave Qin Tian a call, wouldn't he know a lot of things? Fang Yan shook his head and said, "I will keep this matter in mind." Jiang Shangxin originally wanted to stay for a while before leaving, but the rain was getting heavier and it seemed like it would not stop anytime soon. That little princess of the Qin family, she probably knows something? Jiang Shangxin looked at Fang Yan and asked. "I will personally make a trip to the Yan capital," Fang Yan said. Jiang Shangxin took a glance at Lu Zhaoge and giggled. It's not easy to enter the Qin family. Outsiders say that the Jiang family is the most arrogant and the Qin family is the most arrogant. The Qin family's arrogance comes from their bones. They seem to treat everyone very well, but they rarely put anyone in their eyes. Thank you for your reminder. Fang Yan smiled and said. Rumble, another bolt of lightning exploded in the sky, as if it was going to tear apart the endless darkness. Heavy rain. Splash. Fang Haohen's feet stepped into the puddles on the ground. Because of the rapid accumulation of water on the road, it looked like he was running in a river. Fang Haohen's body jumped up high and he threw a punch. That fist was glowing brightly, as if it had suddenly pulled open the case that was covering the luminous pearl, allowing it to release its own brilliance without restraint. When Fang Haohen's body shrunk bit by bit as he ran, the man in the headgear squinted his eyes and revealed a murderous look. When he saw Fang Haohen's white fist flying over, he already knew that this weird-looking guy's skills had reached the peak and he had reached the realm of introverted divine brilliance. What a surprise! The man in the headgear thought to himself. He did not expect to meet such an expert. When he knew that he would not be able to meet Fang Yan, he felt a little regretful. He did not retreat. This was the excitement that he had been looking forward to for a long time. How could he retreat? The man in the headgear also threw a punch. Sizzle, the sound of the rainwater evaporating was heard. His fist and Fang Haohen's were in two opposite states. Fang Haohen's fist was getting smaller and smaller, but the man in the headgear's fist was getting bigger and bigger. Fang Haohen's fist was filled with white light, but the man's fist was pitch black. It looked like an ordinary punch. Boom, their fists collided fiercely. Chapter 774. The light in Fang Haohen's palm exploded, as if a white sun had suddenly risen in the sky. The blazing white light enveloped Fang Haohen's body, as well as the hooded man's pitch-black fist. However, it couldn't hide the color of the hooded man's fist. It was like a black spot on the sun, like a flaw on a bead. The black fist was wrapped in energy, and carried an evil aura that could devour everything, as it fiercely bombarded Fang Haohen's body. Whoosh whoosh whoosh, the wind howled and the energy surged. Between the two of them, a white energy shield formed by strength chi was formed. Inside the transparent energy barrier, there was no wind, no rainstorm, no airflow. They were in a state of complete vacuum. The energy barrier appeared and disappeared in an instant. The surrounding raindrops were bounced off, turning into countless powerful bullets. Crack! The sound of bones breaking could be heard. This was the first round of the battle, a collision of flesh against flesh, a battle of bones against bones. It was unclear whether Fang Haohen's bones broke or the hooded man's. Kai Clan's wildfire fist, Fang Haohen thought. Wuxia Kung Fu had the saying of Southern Fist and Northern Kick. Southern Fist didn't refer to a single fist style, but to the entire Wuxia Kung Fu that was superior to the Northern Kung Fu. Fast, accurate, ruthless, and always able to come up with something new. In the north, the Bailey clan's Bailey Godly Fist was the best, but in the south there was the Kai clan, Li clan, and Hua clan. The Kai clan's Wildfire Fist, the Li clan's Five Grappling Fist, and the Hua clan's mystic fist were all the best. They were also the backbone of the saying of Southern Fist and Northern Kick for hundreds of years. Fang Haohan was Mo Qingdi's disciple, although his drunkard master wasn't very qualified and he often slacked off. But Ng Qingdi liked to explain the various characteristics and uses of the world's kung fu to Fang Yan and his two disciples. The Kai family's wildfire fist was naturally in his explanation, so Fang Haohan recognized the origin of this fist technique the moment he came into contact with it. Deal with change with constancy, deal with constancy with change. The only thing that didn't change was the way he used his strength. It was fierce, ferocious, firm and unbelievably fierce. Moreover, once the battle began, it would be like a wildfire that would never stop. It looked like it was going to burn everything, including the grasslands, the mountains and even the black soil on the ground. What was ever-changing was their fist path. Their fist path had 127 variations, and this was the official number from a few years ago. Perhaps even the old drunkard didn't know how many changes there were now. Wildfire burns the city. The hooded man was indeed a member of the Kai family, and he was a very important person. It was also because of his extraordinary identity that he was wearing black clothes and a black hood that covered his head completely. He used 90% of his strength in this strike. He wanted to smash Hero Fang into a pile of bones with a single punch, even though he looked like a silly-looking big guy. Die! The masked man shouted in a muffled voice. Boom! The light in Fang Haohan's palm flashed again, like the last radiance of the setting sun, or the rebound before death, and then disappeared. Hiss! Fang Haohan and the hooded man's bodies were motionless at first, but then, as if they had been electrocuted, they bounced back in the opposite direction at the same time. Whoosh! Fang Haohan's feet slid quickly on the ground, creating wave after wave of water. A majestic force pushed his body backward. In the process of retreating, his shrunken body began to swell and grow larger. Crack, crack, crack. The bones in Mr. Fang's body kept creaking. When he struggled to stand in the rain, his body had returned to its previous dry and skinny body of a utility pole. The hooded man's body flew into the air and smashed into the distance. His body passed through the rain and the green belt by the side before falling to the ground with a thud. As the ground was too slippery, his body slid all the way until he hit a billboard by the side of the road. Pwah! The hooded man's chest was agitated, and then he spat out a mouthful of blood. He was injured in that attack just now. He was actually injured. The wildfire fist was known for its strength and the way it was used was very unique. Usually, a single strike would cause even top experts to feel agitated, unable to calm down for a long time. But what was up with this skeleton monster today? He still couldn't understand the meaning of the two flashes of light. According to his realm of converged divine essence, he could only complete an attack of that level with all his strength. He retracted his power and blasted it one more time. That's impossible. The hooded man shook his head in denial. How old was this monster? How could he have reached the legendary heavenly Tao realm of inner strength circulation? Or could it be that this was a method of exerting strength that he didn't know of? The hooded man had blocked Fang Haohan's first flash of light, but his body was injured by the second flash of light. Although the second flash of light wasn't as bright as the first, and the strength wasn't as great as the first, it was enough to seriously injure the hooded man who was temporarily in a blank state. He felt like his organs had shifted, and what was even more unbearable was that his right arm was in excruciating pain. During the battle, he heard the crisp sound of bones breaking. It wasn't hard to imagine that it was the sound produced when one's bones couldn't withstand the heavy blows. The torrential rain poured down on his face and body. Most of his body was soaked in the rain, and he looked indescribably wretched. The hooded man suddenly felt a little regretful. Why did he have to make this journey? When he heard that his opponent was the rare genius of the Taiji lineage, Fang Yan, he felt an upsurge of emotions, but he also felt disdain. Hype, it was all hype. In today's society, people's hearts were getting worse. Even some of the people in the inner world were infected with the bad habits of the outside world. Kung Fu was trained day and night with punches and kicks. How could it be packaged and hyped up? He came out this time to have a good battle with Fang Yan, to expose the false face of the revival of Taoism. When he came out to carry out the mission today, he felt a little unhappy when he heard that he might not be able to meet Fang Yan. He came for Fang Yan, but if he couldn't even meet Fang Yan, what was the point of coming out? What? My opponent is a martial nephew of Fang Yan? When he heard the news, he nearly smashed the table he was eating at. He shouted at those people, "Isn't this insulting?" Only now did he know that others weren't insulting him, but he was the one who insulted him the most. Isn't this insulting? When the hooded man thought of this sentence, he wanted to bury his head in the rain and never lift it again. Fang Haohen didn't care what the hooded man was thinking. Anyway, he wasn't the woman he liked and they weren't friends. After Fang Haohen's figure stood still, he glanced at the hooded man's position and quickly ran in his direction. Let's get rid of him first, Fang Haohen thought in his heart. Anyway, it's just something along the way. He had to admit that after being with Fang Yan for a long time, he would more or less be infected with Fang Yan's temperament of not wanting to be at a disadvantage and desperately trying to take advantage of others. For example, he had already defeated his opponent. If he killed him along the way, then even if he suffered some losses, it wouldn't seem that big, right? Of course, 100 hooded men couldn't be compared to his Xiaoya. Not even 1,000,000. Kacha kacha, Fang Haohen's body bent slightly, and he dived toward the hooded man's position. His body spun rapidly. As he spun, a bullet passed by the side of his body. One Eye drove toward the hooded man with one hand, and with the other hand, he raised a silver pistol and pulled the trigger at Fang Haohen. Fang Haohen dodged to the side of the car. Just as the van was about to pass him, he suddenly jumped into the van through the open window. One Eye was shocked. He had just seen Fang Haohen's bone-shrinking ability. But wasn't this kid's tunneling ability too amazing? If he knew Fang Haohen's profession before he met Mo Qingdi, he probably wouldn't have let out such a sigh. Fang Haohen's tunneling speed was fast, but One Eye's reaction speed was even faster. When he saw Fang Haohen appear next to him, he immediately raised his gun and pulled the trigger at Fang Haohen, who was in the passenger seat. There was no pause in the process. Not even a second. Kacha, he pulled the trigger but no bullet was fired. Where's the bullet? Where's the bullet? Where's the bullet? Crack crack crack. Fang Haohen threw the unloaded bullet on the ground, then snatched the pistol from One Eye's hand, and smashed it heavily into One Eye's head. Kacha, kacha, kacha. After 2 or 3 hits, One Eye's head was a bloody mess. His forehead was covered in blood, and his only eye had become blurry due to the blood that had seeped into it. Heaven has a path but you don't want to take it, and hell has no doors but you want to barge in. You want to die, I'll send you to die. One Eye's face was ferocious and he laughed maniacally. He slammed his palm on a red button on the steering wheel, and then the van he was in exploded into pieces with a loud bang. Green liquid splashed everywhere, and the body of the van was quickly corroded into thick smoke. Chapter 775. We've seen countless movies and TV stories that tell us that people who want to die together with others will end up killing themselves in the end. The speed at which Hero Fang entered the hole was fast, and the speed at which he escaped was even faster. When Fang Haohen saw the one-eyed man laughing hysterically, he knew that he would do something shameless. When Fang Haohen heard the one-eyed man shouting lines like, "There's a way to heaven but you don't take it but you rush into hell," he knew that he would do something shameless. If you were a movie lover, you would know that any character who shouted this line was either going to kill someone or be killed very soon. There were no exceptions. The one-eyed man had just raised his hand, and before he could hit the car's steering wheel, Fang Haohen's head shrank and he rolled out. Now was not the time to be a hero. Besides, even if Fang Yingying was here, he would probably run away faster. This was not the first time Fang Haohen came into contact with this kind of genetic weapon. Before he encountered these killers today, Fang Yan had already told him about the horror of this weapon. Fang Haohen would never forget the serious expression on Fang Yan's face when he mentioned this weapon. He said, "Run as far as you can and don't look back." Later, Fang Yingying asked, "What if I can't run away?" Fang Yan looked at Fang Yingying and said, "If I can't run away, then try to turn around and kill them." Fang Haohen knew that people with physical disabilities could also be mentally disabled. People with this kind of mental disability could do anything that ordinary people could not understand, such as suicide. Therefore, Fang Haohen ran away shamelessly. Even if the one-eyed man was faking it, if he didn't slap him, he would accept it. The one-eyed man finally slapped him. The van they were driving was a genetic explosive warehouse. The control button was on the steering wheel, controlled by the one-eyed man. When he detonated the bomb, the van exploded with a bang. The green light flickered, and even the heavy rain could not dilute its density. Not only did it not extinguish them, but the dense raindrops that fell on them immediately evaporated into gas. The green genetic agent was extremely corrosive. Rainwater, grass, soil, and even the metal body of the car. The one-eyed man's body was annihilated in the flames and then burned into ashes or gas. Clang! Half of the car bounced in the air before landing heavily on the ground. When it hits the ground, it's hard to tell what it really is. Moreover, it was shrinking and disappearing at a speed visible to the naked eye. Quang quang quang! Fang Haohan walked up to the hooded man. Fang Haohan looked at the man soaked in the rain and said, "Why bother? Does the Kai family need to be someone else's dog?" "It's not easy for anyone to live," the hooded man said sorrowfully. Boom, the hooded man's fist struck his own head. His head exploded like a watermelon. His head, as well as the hooded man's head, turned into scattered pieces of flesh and cloth, flying in all directions. He didn't want anyone to see his face, and no one would be able to see his face again. In order to not bring shame to his family, in order to not bring danger to his family. Fang Haohan blankly stared at the headless corpse that once again fell to the ground, then said to him with a serious expression, "Don't worry, your hatred is also my hatred. I'll carry it for you." The rain was getting heavier, washing away the sins of this world. Fang Haohan's tall body was running in the wind and rain, like a savage from ancient times. Rumble, the sound of a car engine could be heard from the door again. Fang Yin and Lu Chaoge were standing in front of the French window in the living room, watching as the door of the dark Mercedes-Benz opened and a man came out from the passenger seat with an umbrella. Before the umbrella covered his head, Du Qing in a black trench coat had already opened the door and got out of the car. Du Qing looked up at the French window in the living room. His and Fang Yan's eyes collided in midair through the whistling wind and the dense rain. Fang Yan nodded at him, and then Du Qing strode towards the front door of the villa. Du Qing stood at the door of the living room. He took off his black trench coat, and the bodyguard in black behind him immediately reached out to take it. The bodyguard next to him squatted down to help him take off his shoes, but was pulled up by him and shouted, "When did I, Du Qing, ask my brother to take off my shoes? Get out of the way." Du Qing bent down to take off his shoes, and slowly and calmly untied the shoelaces of his leather shoes. He untied one shoe then the other shoe. He took off both shoes and put them on slippers, then picked up his leather shoes and put them in the shoe cabinet. Du Qing took the towel that Lu Chaoge handed over, bowed slightly to Lu Chaoge, and said with a smile, "Thank you, Miss Lu." Lu Chaoge nodded and turned to help the guests make tea. Du Qing took the towel and wiped the rain off his face, then walked to Fang Yan's side and stood still. Looking at Fang Yan, who was anxious and impatient as if the rain would never stop, he said, "This rain is very heavy. This rain is very heavy." Fang Yan nodded and said, "Don't blame a hero, he is a good boy. I like him very much." Du Qing said aloud, "I don't blame him." Fang Yan nodded and said, "But he is blaming himself." He came back to say something and then went out again. When he went out, Fang Yingying also went out. "My two nephews are usually joking and not decent, but they are a bit stubborn. They will definitely stick to something they are determined to do. They can't be blamed. The main thing is that their improper master didn't teach them well. People were lost and they were lost in the hands of a hero. So, they will definitely find a way to find them. If they can't find them in 1 day, then they will look for them for 2 days. If they can't find them in 2 days, then they will look for them for a year, for the rest of their lives." Such a heavy rain, it must have been hard on these two children. Du Qing sighed. "It's not easy for anyone to live." Fang Yan said. "That's what the Kai family said." The hero said that the Kai family also made a move. He recognized the Kai family's wildfire fist. "This isn't over yet." Du Qing grinned. It was a soundless laugh, but it made people's hearts palpitate. "I don't care if it's the inner Jianghu or the outer Jianghu, I have people, I have guns. I want to destroy the Kai family, I don't want any of them to live." Fang Yan looked at Du Qing with a bit of guilt and said, "The hero wants me to ask you a favor." "Please say it." "Let the Kai family go." Fang Yan said. Fang Haohan made a deal with the Kai family. As long as he told them Li Ye's location, they would let him go. But that person didn't agree. He said that the thing he feared more than death was the death of his entire family. Then he bowed and apologized to Fang Haohan, then used the Kai family's wildfire fist to smash his own head. It's not easy for anyone to live, he just wanted to save his own life. Some people want to save their own life, some people want to save their family. Du Qing nodded and said, "He's a hero. If the Kai family doesn't mind, I'll go and become sworn brothers with them." Chapter 776. Du Qing started from the underworld. He was ruthless, hardworking and loyal. In the end, he rose rapidly and became the leader of Qinghong. Later he followed the trend of the times and wanted to whitewash Qinghong. Thus, he founded the Green Cloud Group that was famous throughout Huaqing and was very influential in the business world of Wuxia. Many people felt that the reason why a gangster like Du Qing could become rich was because he was ruthless, hardworking and loyal. In reality, in that kind of era, in that kind of circle, how many people wouldn't be ruthless, hardworking, and loyal? But why was it Du Qing who fought his way out? Why was it Du Qing who stepped on their heads? Because Du Qing was smart. In this world, smart people were the scariest. They knew what could be said and what couldn't be said. They also knew what could be done and what couldn't be done. Du Qing coming to see Fang Yan at this time was naturally because of the matter of Li Yi being kidnapped. When he heard Fang Yan mention the Kai family's involvement, he immediately said that he didn't care if it was the Jianghu or the Jianghu, he had people and guns and wanted to destroy the entire Kai family. People with status like him usually kept their words. When he heard Fang Yan say that the Kai family member would rather use the family's wildfire fist to smash his head to pieces than to trade, he immediately changed his view of the Kai family. He praised them as a good man and said that if the Kai family didn't abandon him, he was willing to become sworn brothers with them. With a flip of his hand he could create clouds, with a flip of his hand he could create rain. With a gun in his left hand and a rose in his right. Only by doing something and not doing something could one become a Confucian hero. In Fang Yan's long contact with Du Qing, he felt that Du Qing was indeed worthy of the title Confucian hero. Good at calligraphy, good at drinking tea, admires culture, socializes with celebrities, has a calm temperament and talks elegantly. Most importantly, the brothers around him respected and loved him from the bottom of their hearts. This was also the main reason why Fang Yan was willing to associate with him. The secondary reason was because he had people and guns, and was the king of Huaqing's underworld. He would rather smash his head to pieces than let others recognize him. This means that the Kai family is not willing to admit this matter. We just need to remember this in our hearts. The Kai family's people had character when dealing with this matter, but they still made a mistake first. We don't owe them anything. Young master is right. Du Qing nodded and said, I'm used to fighting and killing. When I hear of such a man, I can't help but admire him. It's easy to turn a good thing into a bad thing. These are all trivial matters. Fang Yan shook his head and said, Is there any news? Everyone has been sent out. I received a few calls on the way. They said that they found a suspicious target, but when they went over they found out that it was the wrong target. Du Qing said in a deep voice. These people are all experts and they know how to hide themselves. They came prepared. It won't be an easy task to find them in such a huge flower city. Fang Yan comforted Du Qing and said, Don't worry, their target is not Li Ya. I know. Their goal is not for Li Ya, but to force me to submit. Du Qing said with a smile. Little Ye is taking the blame for me. Fang Yan looked at the deep outline of Du Qing's profile and asked, Have you decided? I've decided. Du Qing smiled bitterly. In their hands, little Ye doesn't have a better choice. Don't you want to give yourself more time? Or, will there be news of Li Ya on your side or my side? You know what kind of people they are, and I also know what kind of people they are. When dealing with people like this, it's best to follow their heart. They can be willful, but I can't. Du Qing had a helpless expression and said, You should know about Li Ya. Although she is the daughter of my brother, he entrusted her to me after he left. All these years I, Du Qing, have never lacked women, but I have never thought of letting those women give me a son or a daughter. What? I'm afraid. A person like me can be hacked to death on the streets or assassinated in my own room at any time. If I die, how can my enemies who are hiding in the dark, those who have a life and death feud with me, let my family go? If I want to give birth to them, then I need to have the ability to protect them. If I can't protect them, then it's best not to give birth to them. Although I don't have children, I want to have a child. So, Li Ya is my only child. She is my daughter. Among all the fathers in the world, how many of them are willing to risk their own daughter's life? I understand. Fang Yan said. Although I've already made my decision, I still feel that I should come and say hello to you. Du Qing looked at Fang Yan apologetically and said, If that's the case, I can't help you anymore. Especially at this time. It's okay. Fang Yan looked at Du Qing, looked at this man who knew how to judge the situation and said, You have already helped me too much, this time I owe you. Du Qing laughed and waved his hand. You understand me and I also understand you. Let's not talk about things like you owe me and I owe you anymore. When this is over, let's have a good drink again. Be good brothers again. Fang Yan said seriously. You're taking advantage of me? Du Qing said with some complaint. Then, his big hand tightly grasped Fang Yan's hand and said, As long as we're alive, we'll be good brothers again. Lu Chaoga came over with tea. Du Qing took the teacup and took a sip, then put the teacup on the tea table. Du Qing looked at Lu Chaoga with a smile and said, Miss Lu's tea is something I will never get tired of. It's much better than the tea brewed by that lass Leah. That lass simply threw the tea leaves into the boiling water. Miss Lu, although I really want to finish this cup of tea, time is of the essence and I still have some personal matters to deal with. So, I'll leave this half a cup of tea for now. I'll enjoy it when I come back. Lu Chaoga nodded, looked at Du Qing with admiration and said, "Whenever Xiao Du comes, there will be good tea for you." Du Qing smiled, waved his hand at the two, then turned around and walked outside. He changed into leather shoes at the entrance, put on the coat on the hanger, then pushed open the door and walked out. The bodyguards in black surrounded him, raising black umbrellas to cover his head. His body rushed into the rainforest, tall and straight. Even something like this couldn't make him lower his head and bend his back. Fang Yan and Lu Chaoga didn't send him out. They stood in front of the floor-to-ceiling window and watched Du Qing's receding figure. "He's a good man." Lu Chaoga held Fang Yan's hand tightly and said aloud. "He's a good man." Fang Yan held Lu Chaoga's hand tightly and said aloud. The wind didn't stop and the rain didn't stop, but tonight the people of Huaqing received something even more shocking than the rainstorm. Du Qing turned himself in. Du Qing, the leader of Qinghong, the founder of Green Cloud Group, the king of Huaqing's underworld these years, was there something wrong with his brain? Why would he turn himself in? One must know, Du Qing's whitewash was very successful. Many years ago he had been working hard to erase the brand of a gang on himself, handing over some of the overly sensitive businesses to others, while he used the funds and connections he had before to run normal businesses or gray businesses that were difficult to define. After experiencing the previous internal rebellion, he almost chased out all the dangerous people in Qinghong. It was also after that incident that Du Qing rarely appeared in the outside world, handing over all the big and small matters to his assistants and his adopted daughter Leah to handle. He could have spent the rest of his life comfortably, he could have lived an enviable retired life. Why did he turn himself in at this time? What else did he need to turn himself in for? Moreover, he had so many underlings he could just find someone to take the blame for him, give him a large sum of money after he came out, and help him take care of his family, right? Wasn't that what everyone did? However, those who understood Du Qing knew that there must be a deeper meaning behind Du Qing turning himself in. For a person like Du Qing, ordinary people couldn't do anything to him. At that time, people who lived off others would feel very proud and could earn a lot of money. As the big brother of Qinghong, he had already seen the future situation and sold off the most profitable business in his hands. At that time, many people scolded him for being a big idiot. In the end, those people who lived off others were either shot to death, or were still in prison singing, "There's not a drop of oil in the cabbage" in their mouths. A few of them had good endings and good luck, but they were only in the business of transporting goods or contracting some sand and stone factories to support their families. How could they be compared to Du Qing, who was a big shot in the business world? Everyone understood one thing: Huaqing was about to change. A storm was brewing. Very quickly, more information was sent back to the people of Huaqing. Qinghong's people were like a pack of wolves, searching for news of Leah all over the world. It was said that Leah had been kidnapped. Then they finally understood the reason why Du Qing turned himself in. However, since Leah had been kidnapped, they could just send more brothers to find her. At most, they could just spend some money to redeem her. Was there a need to turn himself in? What did turning himself in have to do with Leah being kidnapped? Even more people began to scold Du Qing for being an idiot. Turning himself in for a woman, a goddaughter. Those people held a glass of red wine in one hand, and caressed the thigh of a young lady with the other. Their faces were full of mockery as they scolded. Only Du Qing would do such an idiot thing. He offended so many people. I'm afraid he wouldn't be able to survive for more than a few days in prison, right? Chapter 777. The heavy rain had just stopped and the sky was still misty. The drainage system in the neighborhood was excellent. The rainwater that had accumulated up to their ankles had all been drained. After a night of rain, the cement road was as white as a mirror. The grass was greener and the autumn flowers were redder. Of course, due to the strong wind and heavy rain, some of the tender grass in the courtyard was blown away. A frangipani tree had its trunk broken. The trunk was broken, but there was still a piece of flesh attached to the tree. It looked like it was reluctant to part with its mother. The cleaner, who was responsible for cleaning the community and clearing the fallen leaves, found something strange. This community was a high-end villa community. Usually, at 6 or 7 o'clock in the morning, the community was as quiet as night. There were almost no signs of activity. Only after 9 o'clock would there be a busy state of cars coming and going. However, the situation today was a little special. It was only 5 o'clock, not even 6 o'clock. It should be the golden time when the nobles who had been busy the whole night were sleeping soundly or had just fallen asleep. However, there were a few luxury cars entering the neighborhood. Moreover, these luxury cars arrived at the same villa, the entrance of A11's courtyard. Fang Yan didn't sleep the whole night. He kept receiving information from all sides. Fang Yingying and Fang Haohan hadn't returned yet, which meant that they hadn't found Li Ye's information yet. Du Qing had turned himself in, and the person in charge of searching for the hostages was Du Qing's trusted aide, Green Wolf. Last time when Qing Hong rebelled, Green Wolf guarded Du Qing and made a great contribution. With Qing Hong's veteran 13 Tiger Lord and a bunch of others in prison, Green Wolf and the other rising stars naturally had the chance to stand out. Du Qing lost his freedom after he was imprisoned, so it was a little difficult for Green Wolf to handle the situation alone. Therefore, when Du Qing left, he instructed him to report to Fang Yan in time if there was any situation. When he wasn't around, Fang Yan would issue orders on his behalf. Green Wolf knew the relationship between Du Qing and Fang Yan, and he also knew Fang Yan's superb martial arts and ruthlessness. He responded to Du Qing's call to look for Fang Yan if there was any difficulty. Therefore, in the process of searching for the hostages, as long as there was any movement, they would report to Fang Yan. A suspicious vehicle has been spotted at the seafood pier. We've sent our brothers from the Heavenly Squad to check it out. The informant said that they found traces of the enemy in the abandoned factory in Baiyun district. Now they are asking the Brothers of the Earth team to go and rescue them. The Xian team is on standby and ready to provide support. Doggy Li's people are starting to cause trouble. They want to snatch Qing Hong's place. Doggy Li and Master Qing have a grudge. Fang Yan did not feel impatient. On the contrary, he attached great importance to the information he collected each time. He organized the information one by one, and then kept marking and writing on the map of Flower City. From time to time he would discuss something with Lu Chaoga. Lu Chaoga did not sleep for the whole night. Fang Yan urged her a few times, but she still insisted on staying by Fang Yan's side. When Fang Yan's teacup was empty, she filled it with water in time. Fang Yan was hungry, or rather she felt that Fang Yan was hungry. She went to the kitchen and brought over a bowl of steamed buns with chili oil. If Fang Yan missed something, she would subtly remind him. When Fang Yan had something to discuss with her, she would give her opinion in time. Moreover, these opinions were quite important. The ancients all liked women who were beautiful. Lu Chaoga was not just a simple beautiful woman. She could take charge of a region's affairs, and she could even hold a leadership position in a place where strong people gathered. Most of the information is invalid, and even all of the information is invalid. However, if there is one piece of information that is true, or if there is one piece of information that is true out of 10,000 pieces of information, it means that we have found Li Ye's location. This is very important to us and Li Ye, and it is also very important to Du Qing. This was how Fang Yan explained to Lu Chaoga. Du Qing was his ally and he was his brother. The reason why Fang Yan was able to stabilize the foundation of Flower City was closely related to Du Qing's help. Without the help of Du Qing's tens of thousands of green and red disciples, how could he know everything that was happening in Flower City? If the generals were to start a war against Fang Yan, Du Qing would be the best breakthrough point and target. Du Qing started his career from the shadows. Although green and red had been shuffled several times, how could he prove that he had cleaned up everything? Especially Du Qing himself. Everyone knew that he was the biggest gangster leader in Flower City back then. He was still the same. You're such a big shot, yet you've never done anything illegal before? Had he never shot someone in the dark and buried someone in a deep hole? No. Who would believe you if you said you hadn't? So many of your brothers had gone in, but you, as the leader, were pure and clean, looking like the reincarnation of a good person. Did you think everyone else was an idiot? If it was a normal day, even if others knew about Du Qing's background, they would be helpless against him. However, it just had to be at this moment. When Li Ye had been kidnapped, Du Qing had no choice but to pinch his nose and make some compromises. For example, turning himself in. Fang Yan did not sleep for the entire night, and Lanshan Valley's willow tree also woke up very early. The news of Li Ye being kidnapped and Du Qing turning himself in had already spread to everyone's ears. How could they not have received the news? Regardless of whether they liked Du Qing or whether they cared about this gang leader who was born in the wilderness, they were on the same side as Du Qing. Since something had happened to an important person on their side, they naturally had to discuss it with Fang Yan, the core figure. Jiang Shangxin followed closely behind them. Not long after Jiang Shangxin left last night, Du Qing came to visit and made the decision to turn himself in. She went back to take a shower, and before she could lie on the bed, she received the shocking news of Du Qing turning himself in. At that moment she wanted to rush over to see Fang Yan again. However, she thought about it and decided to lie on the bed for a while. She slept all the way until 5 in the morning before she rushed over with her chauffeur and bodyguards. Is it necessary to turn himself in? Jiang Shangxin's face was full of worry. Is there no other solution? It's not that there isn't. Fang Yan scratched his head. Although he did not sleep for the entire night, he seemed to be in good spirits. However, there was a layer of oil on his face and hair, and he did not look very clean and neat. But this is the safest method. Du Qing is too important to us. Lan Shanggu raised his thick eyebrows and said, if he's not around, Qing Hong will not be able to play its role. We do not have Qing Hong's help. If we only rely on our own intelligence channels, we will need to spend a lot more time on many things that happen and develop. Moreover, if those people use Li Ya as a threat to get Du Qing to help them, they won't. Fang Yan said firmly. Du Qing won't. Lan Shanggu took a look at Fang Yan and did not say anything else. It would be a taboo to say something too explicit. You said that Du Qing might be instigated by others, but what evidence do you have? If Du Qing himself or Du Qing's people heard what you said, what kind of attitude would they have towards you in the future? However, what Lan Shanggu did not understand was why Fang Yan trusted Du Qing so much. That's strange too. Jiang Shangxin said, since they kidnapped Li Ya, they could totally ask Du Qing to stand on their side. Why did they send Du Qing to prison? Firstly, it's impossible for Du Qing to stand on their side. Fang Yan looked at Jiang Shangxin and explained patiently. Secondly, they won't believe Du Qing. Du Qing is our friend, they would rather destroy him than use him. That would only increase the number of variables. Therefore, after Du Qing confirmed that Li Ya was kidnapped, his only choice was to turn himself in, let them see it with their own eyes and believe that Du Qing would no longer participate in this war. They have always been so suspicious. Jiang Shangxin said with a face full of disdain. Everyone present knew who she was referring to by they. Others might not know the people from the Jiang family that well, but Jiang Shangxin's understanding of them was deep and ingrained. No one found it strange that this sentence came out of her mouth. Lan Shanggu nodded and said, this is going to be a tough battle. Things have just started and we don't know how much manpower and resources the Jiang family will invest in this matter. If the entire Jiang family comes forward, we can only passively take a beating. We have been living in a remote corner and have made a small fortune these few years. But to go against a giant like the Jiang family who have not fallen for hundreds of years, there is really no possibility of winning. But we can't just surrender, right? Lu Shu, who had been sitting in the corner of the sofa in silence, said aloud. Lan Shanggu's face was full of sarcasm as he said, I'm just analyzing the situation that we are going to face. If we are only facing the two brothers, Jiang Junling and General Xing, we can definitely fight with them. But if the entire Jiang family is mobilized with just the few of us here, what do you think our chances are? I hope that the Lu family can withstand the pressure and not run away when the time comes. Lu Shu glanced at Lan Shanggu and said, the Lu family will do what they are supposed to do, but it's hard to say if the Lan family can do what they are supposed to do. Don't tell me that the old master of the Lan family is thinking of taking back the power of the Lan family? It was a good plan. When things are going smoothly, they will follow along and take advantage. Once they are in danger, they will immediately jump out and cut off all ties with their own grandson to preserve their strength. Lan Shanggu stared at Lu Shu with a dark and fierce gaze and said in a hoarse voice, Lu Shu, I know that you are willing to be a mad dog, but there is no need to bite anyone you see, right? Chapter 778. Mad Dog. Lu Shu touched the wolf mask on his face. Ever since his face was cut, he was never willing to show his injured face to others. Whenever he went out, he would wear a sinister wolf mask on his face. Today was no exception. Normal people can tell that I'm just doubting them. It's not like the Lan clan hasn't done such things before. Normal people know that I left the Lan clan long ago to start my own business, Lan Shanggu said with a stern look. That's right. Because of the success of your business, your family's old man rewarded you with all the shares of the Longtu group. Even though Lu Shu's face was covered by the wolf mask, everyone present could still feel the strong sense of ridicule in his words. None of us here are stupid. Can you stop playing those little tricks of yours? Lan Shanggu grinned and said, then what do you think we should do? Du Qing has already been crippled. The war has just started and we've already suffered heavy losses. However, this time, whether we're facing a person or a clan, we need to give it our all and not have any wishful thinking. If the few of us here can't work together, we might be defeated by them one by one. By then we won't have any chance. Do you think that as long as we give it our all, we will have a chance to win? Jiang Shangxin looked at Lu Shu and asked. Perhaps it was because he was wearing that strange mask, or perhaps it was because of his personality. This man had a sinister and sly aura. It made people feel a chill down their spines. If it wasn't for Fang Yin, Jiang Shangxin really wouldn't be willing to sit together with such a weirdo and chat. No, Lu Shu said without hesitation. Then why do you still want us to fight with them? Only by fighting with them, only by making them pay the price, will they be able to face our power seriously. Only then will we be able to make them feel fear and self-doubt about their own actions. It's normal for them to annihilate our clan, but in their minds, it's naturally something that's convenient and doesn't need to go to war. However, if they encounter intense attacks every time they make a move, and the price they pay is getting bigger and bigger, then they have no choice but to be cautious. If they force it, it will only give opportunities to their competitors. But have you ever thought that if the Jiang family were to face fierce resistance, it would only stimulate their ferocity? I know the Jiang family, they care too much about their face. As long as they took action, they would not rest until one of them was dead. No matter how great the price they had to pay, they had to crush their opponents. Otherwise, they would become the laughingstock of others. They would never do such a thing. What's the difference? Lu Shu's gaze swept past Jiang Shangxin. He looked at Fang Yin and said, since they have already made their move, they will definitely not stop until they kill us. Since this is the case, do we have a better choice? Lan Shanggu looked at the willow tree and said with a smile, so your Lu clan is going to fight to the death with the Jiang clan? That depends on your attitude towards this matter. Lu Shu's voice was cold as he said, if you fight against the Jiang family with all your strength, the Lu clan will definitely not stay out of this. If you only bring out the strength of one person, the Lu clan will definitely not risk their entire clan's strength to fight to the death with others. When the Lu clan is dead or crippled, you will rise again and cling onto the thighs of the Jiang family. The Lu clan will definitely not do such a thing. If we die, we die together. If we live together. If you can cling onto the thighs of the Jiang family, the Lu clan can do the same. The few people present were all trusted subordinates of Fang Yin and Huaqin. Before the battle began, these people had already started arguing. Not only did they represent individuals, but they also represented a family that was, and still is, very prominent. Was the interest of the clan the same as the interest of the clan? Would the clan be willing to bet on the future of the clan to stand with them? These matters were too complicated. Even Fang Yin did not have any better solutions. As they attacked each other with their tongues, Fang Yin held his teacup and drank his tea quietly. He did not stop them or make a sound. He only looked at them quietly. It was as if he was trying to find some clues from their intense or harsh words. It was only when he heard the willow tree say, if we die together. If we live together, that Fang Yin finally snapped out of his dazed state. Fang Yin looked at the willow tree, then looked at Lan Shanggu and Jiang Shangxin who were sitting at the side. He smiled and said, if we are to live, we will naturally live together. However, if we are to die, I hope that I will die alone. Young master, don't say such things. Lan Shanggu hurriedly stopped him. We are all comrades on the same boat. If the boat is sunk, who can survive? I don't mean that, the willow tree also explained. I just hope that everyone can be tied together and not be separated by others. My life was saved by you. Jiang Shangxin giggled and said, if it wasn't for you, I might have died in Paris. Don't be angry with me, Sister Lu. My life is yours, you can take it anytime you want. Jiang Shangxin chuckled. I'm not angry. Lu Chaoga looked at Jiang Shangxin and said, mine too. Fang Yin waved his hand and said, there is one thing we must admit. The reason why the Jiang clan launched this attack is because they hate me the most. Of course, if it was only because they hate me, they wouldn't be willing to spend so much capital to do this. Or is it because of interest? If I'm not around, can you protect the Rubik's Cube and Chaoyin's interests? I am fighting with the Jiang family to the death. You are fighting with the Jiang family for interest. Even if you lose, you will only lose some interest. Finding someone to say some soft words and give up some interest is something that everyone can accept. So, I will still say the same thing. If I need to die, let me die alone. However, if you are willing to stand with me and do something to protect your interests, I will be very grateful. Lan Shanggu's eyes flickered. He finally made up his mind and said, Master, before I say that, I need to go back and discuss with the old master. Fang Yin nodded and said, I understand. The willow tree was the first to express his opinion. He said, life and death are up to fate. As long as the Lu family can offer us, We will definitely not be stingy. This time let the Lu family be the vanguard. Jiang Shangxin looked at Fang Yan and said, I don't have anything to offer. The only thing I have is what you have given me. I can only fight to the death. Lu Chaoga did not say anything. She only held onto Fang Yan's hand tightly. He was alive. He was already alive. He was dead. He was already dead. Fang Yan smiled and raised the teacup in his hand. He said, the world is so beautiful. Everyone should try their best to live. In order to live. Everyone raised their teacups and gently clinked with Fang Yan's teacup. At noon, the Jiang family's real attack finally came. First, the Lu family's cargo ship was seized by the coast police. They said that someone reported them for smuggling. Li Mingzhu, the person in charge of the shipping company, went to negotiate with the coast police, but they refused to budge. Li Mingzhu agreed to let them inspect the ship to prove their company's innocence. However, the coast police said that there were too many ships in front of them. They might not be able to inspect them in a short time. One had to know that there was a delivery date for cargo ships. If they could not deliver the goods within the specified time, they would have to pay a large sum of compensation. They seized more than 100 cargo ships and more than 10,000 containers of the Lu family. They almost seized the entire shipping company that the Lu family controlled. Not to mention the large sum of compensation that the Lu family had to pay to their customers if they could not deliver the goods within the specified time. Just the daily losses of the shipping company was already an astronomical figure. The Lu family started off by shipping and shipping. They started from this link and caused the collapse of the entire industry chain. As long as they did not let go, the Lu family would not be able to deliver the goods. If they did not deliver the goods, they would have to pay double the compensation. More importantly, all the customers would understand that there was no guarantee of safety when working with the Lu family. In the future, which company would be willing to work with the Lu family and ask them to transport goods? This would be a fatal blow to the Lu family. Lan Shanggu did not have a good time either. After he left the Lan family, he established a trading company. In the past few years, he helped Chao Yen to sell the Rubik's Cube products. The company expanded rapidly and was now starting to take shape. However, today the trading company was suddenly seized. It was said that they were involved in tax evasion. Fang Yan was not sure if Lan Shanggu had evaded taxes. However, to be honest, how many companies in Wuxia did not evade taxes? Even the staff of the government department were trying to find invoices so that they could be reimbursed. The reason why Lan Shanggu was targeted was because someone wanted to touch them. The sales company was investigated and the sales channel was broken. This naturally affected the delivery and sales of the Rubik's Cube. It affected the purchase of consumers and the demand of the market. Lan Shanggu was not the only one in trouble. Even the Lan family was hit by them. Two of the listed companies controlled by the Lan family were exposed to scandals. The moment the market opened, their prices fell. Based on the current trend, it would be difficult for them to recover in a short period of time. When that happened, the stocks of the Lan family would be no different from waste paper. What made Fang Yan the most furious was that Jiang Shangxin met with a car accident when she went to Longtu Group to control the overall situation. Chapter 779. After Shangxin left Fang Yan's side, she went straight to work at Longtu Group. The more chaotic the situation was, the more they needed to be in charge of the headquarters. Since the Jiang family had failed to acquire the shares of Longtu Group from Shangxin, they naturally wouldn't show any mercy to this company. The Lan family and the Lu family were facing a huge crisis, and it was still unknown how they were going to deal with Longtu Group. However, the more unknown it was, the more worried and uneasy it was. When Jiang Shangxin's car turned left on Donghu Road, a truck full of furniture ran the red light and crashed into the side of the Mercedes-Benz that Jiang Shangxin was in. Luckily, Shangxin discovered it in time and hurriedly instructed the driver to crash into the green belt in the middle of the road. The front of the truck broke the railing in the middle of the green belt, then it turned around and fled in the opposite direction. The truck couldn't stop in time and crashed into the green belt. The body of the truck tilted, and the entire car overturned in the middle of the road. The large furniture on the car was scattered all over the ground, and the traffic on the entire road was blocked. Jiang Shangxin's bodyguards rushed over and wanted to control the truck driver. However, by the time they arrived, the truck driver had already disappeared. It was as if he had vanished into thin air. When Jiang Shangxin called Fang Yan to talk about this, Fang Yan told her not to go to the office and to find a safe place to stay. Jiang Shangxin insisted on going and said that if she was scared off today, she would fall into the trap of the people behind the scenes. Jiang Shangxin gritted her teeth when she talked about those people. It seemed that this assassination incident had made her hate her family to the core. Fang Yan had no choice but to send a group of elites from Green Wolf to Longtu Group to be in charge of Jiang Shangxin's safety. Green Wolf agreed to Fang Yan's words and immediately sent a group of people to Longtu Group to carry out the mission. Fortunately, Green Wolf had a strong foundation. Otherwise, under the situation where they needed manpower in all aspects, their small business wouldn't be able to hold on. Compared to the huge crisis encountered by the Lan and Lu families, Chaoyan Technology was calm. Nothing unusual had happened. It was as if the Jiang family had deliberately forgotten about it, or they simply did not know the relationship between Fang Yan and Chaoyan Technology. However, in the eyes of Fang Yan and Lu Chaoga, this was not a lucky thing. Everyone knew that Chaoyan Technology belonged to Fang Yan and Lu Chaoga, as well as the Qin family. If the Jiang family made a move against Chaoyan Technology, they would naturally anger the Qin family and force the Qin family to retaliate. This was clearly unwise. The Jiang family didn't touch Chaoyan Technology because they didn't want to anger the Qin family. However, another possibility could not be ruled out. The Jiang family and the Qin family had reached a consensus, sacrificing Fang Yan and Lu Chaoga in exchange for control of the entire Chaoyan Technology. Chaoyan Technology had the Rubik's Cube, which was coveted by the energy industry all over the world. The Rubik's Cube was a hen that could continuously lay golden eggs. Even a family like the Qin family could not resist the strong temptation it emitted. If the Qin family had really reached a secret agreement with the Jiang family, it would be a disaster for Fang Yan. Don't think too badly of the outcome. Looking at Fang Yan frowning in front of the map of Huaqing, Lu Chaoga's heart ached. She tried to persuade him. Maybe they are just afraid of angering the Qin family. With Chaoyan Technology's current important position in the Qin family's entire industry layout, attacking Chaoyan is equivalent to attacking the Qin family. The Qin family will definitely not tolerate it. They are very cautious. Lu Chaoga did not go to Chaoyan Technology to oversee things. After Jiang Shangxin got into a car accident on her way to work, Fang Yan stopped Lu Chaoga from going to work. He didn't want Lu Chaoga to encounter the same thing again. He didn't dare to take the risk. He could lose, but he would never gamble with the lives of Lu Chaoga and the people close to him. Moreover, even if Lu Chaoga didn't go, Chaoyan Technology could still hold on. The people from the Qin family were all at their posts. Even if the Jiang family attacked Chaoyan, the wealthy families would have a common language. I need to make a trip to the Yan capital. Fang Yan said in a low voice, I need to go to the Qin family. I want to talk to them. Lu Chaoga nodded and said, okay, you are going to talk to them. It was pitch black and gloomy. There was also a faint smell of blood in the air. Du Qing had lived on the edge of a knife for almost half of his life, so he was very familiar with the smell of blood. According to Du Qing's status, he shouldn't have been brought to such a detention room to be interrogated. He should have had better conditions. The connections he had made in Huaqing would have stood up for him and treated him as a distinguished guest. This was the happy prison life of a gang leader. For those with money and power, there was a world of difference between outside and inside prison. But similarly, inside prison, there was a world of difference between their lives and those of ordinary prisoners. The treatment they received in prison was a life that many prisoners couldn't enjoy on the outside. However, Du Qing obviously couldn't enjoy these benefits. After he entered the building, he was locked into a separate and sealed room. The room was narrow. Other than a broken bucket for prisoners to relieve themselves, there was nothing else. There was no table, chair, or bed. He could only rest and sleep on the floor. Because the room was too small, he couldn't straighten his body. He had to bend his waist when he slept. Du Qing didn't have any objections. He found a clean place and sat down. Then he closed his eyes and began to rest. The night was silent. No one came to disturb him. After dawn, he was brought to this slightly larger interrogation room. Du Qing knew that the show had begun. When he was still a lackey, he would occasionally be arrested and locked up for a few days. Now that he thought about it, how many years had it been since he came to this kind of place? 10 years? Or 20 years? What a distant memory. Clang! The iron door of the interrogation room was pushed open. A thin man wearing glasses walked in. 2 tall men in uniform followed behind. After they came in, the iron door behind them closed with a clang. The man with glasses stood in front of Du Qing and looked down at him. He smiled and said, Boss Du, long time no see. You're still as elegant as ever. Du Qing glanced at the man with glasses and said in a deep voice, how can a down-and-out prisoner be called a boss? Captain Wang, don't make fun of me. Boss Du is too modest. Who doesn't know that you're the underground king of Huaqing? You can summon tens of thousands of underlings to work for you with a stomp of your foot. Every day you make a lot of money. Who doesn't give you some face? Wang Dequan adjusted the glasses on the bridge of his nose and said jokingly, I don't get it. I really don't get it. The mighty Boss Du came to the police station to turn himself in, and even fell into my hands. Boss Du, do you still remember our friendship in the past? I remember. Du Qing nodded. Back then you came to my place to collect protection fees. My brothers lifted you up and threw you out. Du Qing, you didn't think that you would end up like this, did you? Wang Dequan said coldly with a dark look in his eyes. Why wouldn't I? Du Qing smiled lightly. In our line of work we can be killed by a bullet at any time. Being cut off or having our head blown off, what kind of ending haven't I thought about? Now I'm just sitting at a place I used to come to. It's already much better than I thought. Du Qing, do you think you're just here to sit? Do you know who you've offended? Wang Dequan laughed and said, You've made friends with so many bigwigs, why didn't anyone call to intercede for you this time? Think about it, there are hundreds of people in this bureau. Why is it that it's my turn to interrogate you? Du Qing, you're about to die, don't you know? Du Qing looked at Wang Dequan and said, I know some things better than you. You can ask, I'll tell you everything I can and I won't say a word that I can't say. Pa! Wang Dequan threw a file in his hand on the iron table in front of Du Qing and said, Du Qing, this is the record of your surrender. Think about it, did you miss anything? Du Qing didn't touch the documents and said, I've said everything that should be said. Think about it again. Wang Dequan took out a cigarette from his pocket and lit it up, saying, Think about it carefully. If you can't think of it, my subordinates are happy to help you recall. Our conditions here are simple, some of our interrogation methods and tools are not as advanced and ruthless as your guys who play dirty, but, if Boss Du is willing to give us some advice, I think we will definitely improve. Don't you think so? Du Qing looked up at Wang Dequan and said, I know what you want. Boss Du is one of the smart people in Huaqing, of course you know what I want. You want me to bite people. Bite people who don't matter. How can you say people who don't matter? He's a big shot in Huaqing, even Boss Du has to follow his lead. I can't afford to offend this kind of person. However, since he has a close relationship with Boss Du, how could he not have a part in the things you've done? Don't you think so? I did it. Du Qing's fingers lightly tapped on the table and said, It has nothing to do with him. You see, you're really not smart to say that. Wang Dequan shook his head inside. He gave a look, and immediately a tall man pressed a stack of newspapers on Du Qing's back. Another policeman held a metal rod and smashed it on the newspapers. Bang! The newspapers made a dull sound, and Du Qing's body suddenly fell forward. Du Qing's chest bumped against the metal table, but he quickly straightened his back and straightened his spine. He wiped the blood from the corner of his mouth, looked at Wang Dequan and said, You don't care. Chapter 780. Fastidious. Wang Dequan looked at Du Qing and laughed. When Du Qing was punished, there was a sense of pleasure in his heart. When he was still a small policeman, Du Qing was high up and didn't put them in his eyes at all. He went to his place to collect some protection fee. Oh no, management fee. Du Qing actually dared to order his underlings to carry him out and throw him on the street. As time went by and his position rose, it was harder for him to let go of that incident. That incident was like a fishbone, deeply stuck in his throat, unable to get out or go down. Du Qing, he was just a gangster leader, how dare he treat him like this? He had held grudges for many years and waited for many years. If Du Qing hadn't voluntarily surrendered himself, if someone hadn't wanted to trample him to death, he would never have exposed his dissatisfaction with Du Qing. After all, he was now a famous business tycoon. However, he had offended someone he couldn't afford to offend, he had to surrender himself to the police station, and someone sent him to him. With so many coincidences added up, if he didn't know how to grasp it, he would have been wronged for so many years in vain. Now Du Qing's life and death were in his hands. Even if he asked someone to beat him to death, it could also be said that he had a heart attack. Anyway, he had checked Du Qing's information, and Du Qing had a lot of small problems. Wang Dequan seemed to have heard the best joke in the world. He held his stomach and laughed until he couldn't breathe, saying, Fastidious? Did I hear it wrong? A gangster leader told me that I'm not fastidious? What is this? It's like a murderer telling us, you don't respect the law. Ah, Du Qing, are you confused? Such words, how can you have the nerve to say it? You're not fastidious. Du Qing didn't laugh. His forehead was dripping with blood, and the blood slid down his cheeks, giving him a kind of mournful and sinister temperament. You weren't fastidious back then and you're still not fastidious now. Du Qing looked at Wang Dequan and said, "Do you know why I asked someone to throw you out? When others came over, I would give them good cigarettes and wine, and I would not miss a cent. But you're different from them. You're not fastidious and you directly doubled the money we should pay. You broke the rules. If I had promised you that time, you would soon have quadrupled it, 8-fold, 16-fold, until we could not afford it. Gangsters are people too. They need to look after the place, wash the dishes and serve the customers to earn money. If you take away so much, how are they supposed to live? What happened back then is already in the past. I'm talking about the present. As the saying goes, you can see the old from 3 years old. You haven't changed much from how you were back then." Du Qing's lips curled into a smile as if he was mocking Wang Dequan for not growing up. "You're not at all particular now. You should know that when everyone's status reaches a certain level, everyone will part on good terms. Harmony breeds wealth, right? I know you have a heavy responsibility on your shoulders, so I won't make things difficult for you. I've told you everything that I should. My explanation is equivalent to giving an explanation to the higher-ups for you." Du Qing gently shook his head and said, "I'm thinking for you, but you're not thinking for me at all." He looked back at the 2 men in black who were responsible for the torture and said, "What is this? Playing with torture? You're not smart, so I can only think of a way to make you smarter," Wang Dequan said coldly. He didn't like Du Qing's gaze. He didn't like Du Qing's smile. He didn't like how Du Qing still dared to look at him like that even though he was already a prisoner. "Du Qing, if you've come to your senses, then hurry up and tell us the truth. Tell us the truth. Did someone instigate you to do those things? Is there something else you're hiding from us?" "Wang Dequan, I can tell you honestly that Fang Yan is a good person. He's a good person who can go to heaven even if he dies. He wouldn't instigate me to do those things. If he knew that I did those things that you think I did, he would immediately cut off all ties with me. In this world, not all successful people are as dirty as you think, and not all people are as unscrupulous as you think. I've said it before, I've said what I should say. I won't tell you a single word of what you want to hear. There's a path to heaven that you don't want to take. All right, Du Qing waved his hand. When he waved his arm, the shackles on his hands clanked. "I'm more familiar with these lines than you, and I can say them with more vigor than you. What are you going to do? Hurry up and start. You've got guts and loyalty." Wang Dequan clapped his hands and laughed. Soon, his expression became as gloomy as iron. He shouted, "Loosen his bones, let him sober up." Bang! Another iron rod hit Du Qing's back. No, it was the discarded newspapers that were padded on his back. Bang, 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 the rod hit him again and again. With each hit, Du Qing's body staggered and fell forward. The rib cage in his chest hit the metal table and made a "pah" sound. Soon he straightened his back and sat up. After dozens of strikes, Du Qing's reaction speed became slower and slower, and it took him longer and longer to get up. However, every time the iron rod hit him down, he would sit up straight again with his head held high and chest puffed out. Previously, he only vomited blood from his mouth, but now his nose and eyes were bleeding. His internal organs were severely injured, and the bones in the back of his body were about to break. This was a special torture method that would break the bones and internal organs inside but leave no visible external wounds. Du Qing knew that he could really be beaten to death by them. Bang! Another rod hit him from behind. Du Qing's head laid on the table in front of him, not moving for a long time. Wang Dequan walked to the front of Du Qing and grabbed his hair to pull his head up. Looking at his bloody and wretched appearance, Wang Dequan coldly said, "Du Qing, you should already know the current situation, right? Someone wants you dead and I don't want you to live. Say it, and I'll give you relief." The dignified boss of Qing Hong has to bear such humiliation, even I can't bear it. Du Qing, say it, and I'll give you dignity. Live or die, I'll give you dignity. Wang Dequan, Du Qing opened his heavy eyelids, looked at the fierce man in front of him and said, "You're not particular." "Yes, I'm not particular," Wang Dequan didn't deny it. "If you're not particular, then I'm also not particular," Du Qing said. "Do you know who I am? You're Du Qing, the famous leader of hoodlums in Huaqing." "Yes, I'm Du Qing, the famous leader of hoodlums in Huaqing. Tell me, if I die in your hands, what will you do?" Wang Dequan smirked coldly and said, "Du Qing, what? Are you revealing your true intentions? Are you threatening me? Why don't you think you're a dying man? What right do you have to threaten me?" Wang Dequan, "Do you know? Although I, Du Qing, have countless women, I've never been single. I know you're a playboy. Men like you who have done too many bad things are afraid that your son won't have an asshole. I don't have a wife or son, so I don't have any scruples. Wang Dequan, you do. You're different from me. What do you mean? Wang Dequan's expression froze and asked in a low voice. You're not particular, so I can also be very particular with people who are not particular? Wang Dequan, I believe you, I might die here. But have you ever thought, I, Du Qing, have tens of thousands of disciples. Can you capture them one by one? Kill them one by one? If you can't capture them all, you can't clean them up. As long as one escapes the net, they'll find your family, your wife and children. Wang Dequan, no one has ever said this to you before, right? To be honest, although I'm a leader of hoodlums, I believe that one should be particular when doing things. I believe that everyone should take responsibility for their own mistakes, not their wives and children. That's why I've never said this to anyone else. I think it's unstylish and embarrassing. But today, Du Qing coughed violently. He covered his mouth with his hand, and his palm was filled with fresh blood. He used his elbow to support himself on the table and slowly pushed his body up. He ran a hand through his hair to make it look less messy. He forced himself to stay alert and once again straightened his back. His checkered waistcoat was clean and neat, giving off a sense of elegance. His black suit and black trench coat were stained with blood, but he still gave off a gentlemanly feeling. He looked at Wang Dequan, his voice hoarse but unyielding. Today I'll make an exception. Wang Dequan, I, Du Qing, reserve your wife and children. You're threatening me? You? Du Qing no longer looked at Wang Dequan, but turned to look at the two tall men, saying, You've worked hard, I don't dare to trouble the two of you. Take a break, I'll do it myself. The two tall men looked at Du Qing's calm and cold expression, and couldn't help but take a step back. At this time, Du Qing had an intimidating aura. Like a vicious tiger, even if it was heavily injured, it wouldn't allow those chickens and dogs to invade it. Thank you. Seeing the two tall men step back, Du Qing grinned at them. Then he slammed his head on the iron table in front of him. Clang, clang, clang. Chapter 781. There was a saying in Jianghu, the arrogant are afraid of the stupid, and the stupid are afraid of the reckless. In the process of promotion, Wang Dequan had also done a lot of things that crossed the bottom line. He had always thought that he was a dangerous man who did not care about his life. However, after seeing Du Qing's performance at this moment, he realized that compared to his own self-awareness, he realized that he was simply not up to par. It wasn't that he didn't care about his life, but he was just being unreasonable. For so many years he couldn't even be arrogant. What a cruel truth. Clang, clang, clang. Du Qing was still banging against the wall with all his might as if he wanted to smash his head. He wanted to kill himself in front of Wang Dequan. His forehead was dripping with blood. The blood blurred his eyes and slid down his cheeks, flowing down his neck and onto his white shirt. Because his shirt was so white and straight, it was so bright and dazzling after being stained with blood, and it was a ghastly sight. His flesh and blood were sticky, and the wound on his forehead could no longer be seen clearly. Every time they collided, there would be a heavy thud on the iron table. Clang, clang, clang. Because Du Qing used too much force, grooves of different sizes appeared on the metal table. Clang, clang, clang. With every knock, another groove would appear. When he knocked his head on the same spot, the previous dent became bigger and deeper, as if the iron shell was about to break apart. Clang, clang, clang. Every time Du Qing's head smashed against the metal table, it felt like he was smashing against the faces and hearts of Wang Dequan and the others. It felt like he was trying to smash open the gates of hell, for himself and for Wang Dequan and the others. Captain? A tall uniformed man's face was filled with panic. He pointed at Du Qing, who was still hitting his head with all his might, wanting to commit suicide, and said, Something will happen to him. Something will happen to him like this. Captain, what do we do now? The other uniformed man was also frightened. They were in this line of work and they often used private torture on others. But today they hadn't even done anything and the suspect had already done it. This was the first time they had seen something like this. It was only then that they realized the man's identity. Not only was he the prisoner Du Qing who had turned himself in, he was also the leader of Qing Hong, the underground godfather of Flower City with tens of thousands of subordinates. Even now, he wasn't someone they could bully at will. The one who was suffering the most was Wang Dequan. Perhaps Du Qing would not remember the names of the two black-clothed men who had carried out the torture. In fact, he would not even bother to remember their names. He knew that they had been ordered by someone else, and he would not lower himself to the level of such insignificant people. However, he would definitely take revenge on him. Just as he had said, his wife was already reserved by Du Qing. He wasn't joking. If he died here today, the enraged members of the Green-Red Gang would really take revenge on all of Wang Dequan's relatives and children. Wang Dequan didn't dare to imagine what they would do. He wasn't afraid of thieves stealing, but he was afraid of thieves remembering. However, if he were to give up on Du Qing just like that, how was he going to explain it to the higher-ups? Explain to those who wanted Du Qing to bite or die. Previously, Wang Dequan was very excited, feeling that the best opportunity had arrived. If he could do this job well, he would have a meteoric rise in his career, or even several steps forward. Moreover, he could humiliate Du Qing. Just like how Du Qing humiliated him in the past. But how did things become like this? Du Qing. Wang Dequan's forehead was drenched in cold sweat as he clenched his teeth and shouted Du Qing's name. Quang. Du Qing acted as though he didn't notice it as he continued to knock his head hard. His strength was getting weaker and his speed was getting slower and slower. His eyes were already finding it hard to open. He was relying on his body's inertia to do this. You bunch of trash. Wang Dequan finally couldn't hold on any longer. He scolded the two tall men. Hurry up and stop him. Do you really want to see him die in front of you? Let me tell you, I, Wang Dequan, have to bear the responsibility. None of you can escape. When the two uniformed men heard Wang Dequan's order, they hurriedly supported Du Qing on his left and right, preventing him from knocking his head on the metal table again. Bang! Du Qing was still using his head to knock forward, but this time, his head knocked onto the chest of one of Wang Dequan's men. Dear passengers and friends, Flight A73001 from Huaqing to Yanjing has arrived. We the Sky Alliance. The sound of the broadcast in the cabin woke Fang Yan up. He didn't sleep last night, and today he was busy dealing with all kinds of unexpected situations. He was also busy rushing to the airport before the matter was over, so his body was indeed a little tired. He naturally couldn't waste some rest time on the plane. He always needed to maintain his best mental state. The battle had just begun, who knew what would happen later? He opened his eyes and looked out the window. The sky was gloomy and it was still drizzling outside. This made Fang Yan's mood even gloomier, and he could only secretly pray in his heart that everything would go smoothly on this trip to Yanjing. Fang Yan came to Yanjing alone, and he didn't bring any luggage. After the plane landed, he directly took the flight company's VIP car and left first. When he walked to the exit, he immediately saw a tall and handsome man who was like a statue of a Greek god standing at the exit to welcome him. Eagle Mu. Because of Eagle Mu's outstanding appearance, all the people at the exit looked at his face. Some bold girls even took the initiative to come up to him and ask for his phone number. When he shook his head and refused, those girls were on the verge of tears, and their hearts were about to break. Fang Yan couldn't bear it anymore, so he walked up to Eagle Mu and said, "If they want your phone number, just give it to them. You don't have to contact them every day." "Thank you, uncle." Seeing that someone had spoken up for them, the two girls who came to ask for Eagle Mu's phone number bowed and thanked Fang Yan together. "Uncle?" The flesh on Fang Yan's face twitched and he regretted being a busybody. "You've arrived." Eagle Mu looked at Fang Yan with a smile and said, "This kind of thing always happens. If I give my phone number to everyone who asks for it, my number will become a public phone." This time it was even more serious. Fang Yan planned to have a good talk with Qin Tian. If he wanted to send someone to pick him up at the airport next time, could he not send a guy like Eagle Mu? When he stood with Eagle Mu, people would always suspect that he was the one carrying the bags. As an outstanding protagonist, Fang Yan couldn't stand this kind of treatment. Qin Tian's actions were always so noble and extraordinary, as if she never wanted to hide her wealth. She didn't have the awareness of being a heroine at all. If you don't hide your identity, if you don't hide your wealth, how can anyone bully you? If no one bullies you, how can the male protagonist save the damsel in distress? How can he act cool and slap her in the face? Behind Eagle Mu were four tall men in black. They looked cool and professional like bodyguards from a big family. There was a long Rolls-Royce parked at the entrance, and Fang Yan recognized it as Qin Tian's car. Qin Tian sent his own car to pick him up. Eagle Mu personally opened the car door for Fang Yan, and after Fang Yan got in, he opened the door from the other side and got in. He sat next to Fang Yan and said, "It's really late today and Miss can't make arrangements. You should rest well. Tomorrow morning she will personally pick you up and take you to see the person you want to see." Fang Yan nodded. This was the benefit of hanging out with smart people. You didn't need to think about anything and others would do it for you. You just needed to follow her arrangements, and every step of the way wouldn't make you feel uncomfortable or disappointed. Qinitian, this girl. How did she look like this? Fang Yen looked at Eagle Mu and asked, how's Tian recently? Eagle Mu grinned and said, did you hear some rumors so you want to get an answer from me? I heard some bad rumors. Fang Yen said embarrassedly. He knew that these people were all shrewd people. Trying to pry information from them was a form of disrespect in the first place. Some people said that the Jiang family and the Qin family are working together, so I'm a little worried. I understand what you're worried about. But I can't tell you this. Eagle Mu said with a smile. I'm a member of the Qin family and I support everything the Qin family does. Even if I don't support it, I won't oppose it. Whatever answer the Qin family gives you, that's the answer I can give you. So, before the Qin family gives you an answer, I can't give you any information. You're really? Fang Yen smiled bitterly. A good dog? No, a good person, Fang Yen praised. I have brothers like that with me and one of them turned himself in for me. I understand his situation and I know what he's going to face. However, I didn't stop him from doing it. What? Because he's my brother? Fang Yen said with a smile, what he did for me is what I'm willing to do for him. I really envy your relationship. Eagle Mu chuckled. Miss wouldn't say something like that to me. What would Miss say to you? She said, Eagle Mu, you're too good looking and Fang Yen won't like you. Why don't you go for plastic surgery and make yourself uglier? That way when I marry Fang Yen, you can still serve me. Chapter 782. Did she really say that? Fang Yen asked in shock. How could Qinitian say that? She really understood him too well. Fang Yen thought Qinitian was becoming more and more adorable. But when did they get married? When did he say he was going to marry Qinitian? This lass is always so lawless. She's too reckless. Mu Ying shrugged his shoulders, looking handsome. Fortunately, there were only men in the car and no woman saw him like this. Otherwise, someone would be crazy about him. Fang Yen didn't like crazy people. Even Wuxia's 7 addicts were no exception. Of course not, Mu Ying said helplessly. I'm her loyal confidant. If she really treats me like this, wouldn't it be too sad? I knew it. Fang Yen breathed a sigh of relief and said, Qinitian is a girl with a high EQ. She wouldn't say something so rude. But she did worry about it, Mu Ying said helplessly. She looked at me a few times and said, Mu Ying, you're too good looking. You have to think of a way. If she said I was ugly and she asked me to think of a way, I would know that she wanted me to have plastic surgery. But I'm already like this and she still asked me to think of a way. What does that mean? Fang Yen looked at Mu Ying's exquisite facial features and said with jealousy, look, you're better looking than many girls. Maybe your mistress thinks you're too much of a show-off, so she wants you to keep a low profile. No, she's not someone who doesn't have confidence in herself. Mu Ying shook his head firmly. Everyone thinks that she's the #1 beauty in Yanjing, and she must think so in her heart. Even if she never said it and she always acted cold and indifferent to this kind of thing. But that must be what her psychology thinks. Mu Ying looked at Fang Yen and said, she just doesn't have confidence in you. Fang Yen had a feeling that the trip to Beijing would not be smooth. The car stopped at the entrance of an ancient villa. Fang Yen got off the car and looked at the antique courtyard. He asked, where is this? Mu Ying glanced at Fang Yen and said, Mrs. House. Why are we here? Fang Yen asked. Isn't that a little inconvenient? Why don't you send me to the hotel? Why do you care? Mu Ying asked, looking at Fang Yen. You're worried that this will bring trouble to Miss, aren't you? You also know. Fang Yen bitterly smiled and said, some time ago, there were rumors about me and Tian in Beijing, and some of them were very unpleasant to hear. Now that I'm living in her house, doesn't that make people even more suspicious? I don't care about it, but it's not good for the girl's reputation. Mu Ying grinned, made an inviting gesture and said, since you don't care, there's no need to go anywhere else. Do you think Miss will care about what others say? Is there anything in this world that she cares about? It's not good for you to make enemies for your Miss, right? Miss doesn't lack money nor does she lack career. She has the looks and wisdom. What she lacks is a lover and an enemy. The courtyard door opened and a servant ran over to open it. Mu Ying looked at the young woman who quickly came over and said, this is Mr. Fang, a very important person to Mississippi. Please treat him well. He then pointed to the woman and said to Fang Yen, this is Mrs. Housekeeper, Coco. If you need anything you can ask her to do it. Coco showed the professionalism of a personal butler. He bowed respectfully to Fang Yen and said with a face full of smiles, Hello, Mr. Fong. I'm Mrs. Personal Butler, Coco. Miss specially called me to tell me that a friend will be staying here and asked me to take good care of him. Mr. Fong, you just got off the plane, right? I've prepared a simple dinner for you according to your taste. Before that, if you'd like, you can go outside and soak in the hot spring for a while. The hot spring water is ready, and the clothes are placed next to the hot spring pool. Muing said goodbye to Fang Yen and asked Fang Yen to have a good rest tonight. Miss would come to pick him up the next morning. Of course, Fang Yen wanted to soak in the hot spring first. Before he got close to the pool, he could hear the bubbling sound and the faint smell of sulfur. It was indeed the most authentic Mount Tongshan hot spring. The hot spring was open air and was isolated from the outside world by dense trees. You could see outside from the inside, but you couldn't see inside from the outside. Fang Yen took off all his clothes and sat in the hot spring pool with only a pair of shorts on. Ah! He couldn't help but let out a comfortable moan. The temperature of the hot spring was just right as he soaked in it, opening up every pore on his body. It made Fang Yen feel extremely comfortable. All the fatigue on his body was swept away, and his mind became much clearer. He felt like he had been reborn. Fang Yen looked around at the elegant installations and some simple but unique furnishings. He immediately realized that this was the pool that Qini Tian used to soak in. He actually used Qini Tian's pool. He actually shared a hot spring with Qini Tian. But when he thought about how the hot spring outside was shared by countless people, he felt that it wasn't a big deal after all. Anyway, Qini Tian wasn't here now. What was Qini Tian doing now? What was the Qin family's choice? Did they reach a secret agreement with the Jiang family? What about Qini Tian? Her position. He believed that Qini Tian naturally knew her position. But would this make things difficult for her in the middle? There was a slight sound of footsteps. Coco. Fang Yen rested his head on the wall of the hot spring and said, "Don't rush to eat. I want to soak for a while." The sound of footsteps got closer. Then one foot reached into the hot spring and another foot reached in. Fang Yen was furious. This Qini Tian. What did she think he was? She even dared to arrange this kind of healthcare program that insulted him. What kind of person did she think he was? Fang Yen stood up and was ready to use his eyes to condemn the girl who dared to break into the hot spring. Fang Yan's eyes widened as he looked at the long-haired girl in a black swimsuit sitting in the pool, and he asked, "Why are you here?" "This is my home. Why can't I be here?" The girl's eyes twinkled like the stars in the sky. There was a faint smile on her face. She looked at Fang Yen seriously as if she was admiring the most precious treasure in the world. "Didn't Eagle Moo say, I told Eagle Moo that I would come to find you tomorrow? I'm a girl. How could I tell Eagle Moo that you brought Fang Yen here and that I would wait for him at home? How could I tell them that?" The girl's voice was clear and crisp. But why did I come to soak in the hot spring?" "No, what I mean is that, Mr. Fang, are you really that surprised by my arrival? From what I know about you, you should have guessed these things in advance, right?" The young girl stretched out her snow-white and tender arms and cupped the hot spring bubbles one after another. She said, "You have so many doubts in your heart and all kinds of things that have happened or will happen soon. If I don't come to see you, the doubts in your heart will become even deeper and stronger. You definitely won't be able to sleep well tonight, right? How could I bear to do that? So late. I thought it wasn't convenient for you to come out." Fang Yen explained. "It's not convenient for me to come out. But as long as you want to do something, you can always think of a way, right? For example, I used to think that since the hot spring here is so good, it would be great if you could come and soak in it. I just thought about it. Now I can do it. Isn't that right?" "Qini Tian, Mr. Fang, don't be nervous." Qini Tian looked at Fang Yen, who was huddled in the corner, and giggled. She splashed a handful of water on his face and said, "We're just taking a bath together. I don't need you to take any responsibility. If I have to take responsibility for something like this, who would dare to go swimming in public?" "Thank you." Fang Yen looked at the beautiful and flawless woman who was like a fairy in the forest. He felt that his throat was a little blocked. He said in a deep voice, "I'm very happy that you can come. I'm very happy. I believe in you. I've always believed in you. But for you to appear in front of me, I still feel it's a pleasant surprise." "Of course," Qini Tian said as if it was a matter of course. "I'm the most beautiful woman in Yanjing. Not every man has the opportunity to soak in the hot spring with me. This is my bath. I designed it myself. Since it was built, I'm the only one who has soaked in it. Now there's one more person and it's a man. Fortunately, I don't hate this man. It's my honor. I'll definitely enjoy it." Fang Yen said with a smile. When I soaked my body in just now, I felt that the pressure that I've endured these days was swept away. It seems that you can sleep well tonight, Qini Tian said with a smile. Fang Yen looked at Qini Tian and asked, who am I going to see tomorrow? Of course, the person who has the most ability to help you. Is her attitude the same as yours? Qini Tian shook his head. She wants to maintain cooperation with the Jiang family? Fang Yan's heart began to sink. For a long time, he and Lu Chaoga's backer was the woman who controlled the Qin family. If she also wanted to maintain cooperation with the Jiang family, then their days would really be difficult. No, I don't understand her. Qini Tian looked at Fang Yan and said. Chapter 783. Her eyes were like stars and her lips were like cherry blossoms. Her black hair was like a waterfall and her skin was whiter than snow. Under the cover of the bubbling water, most of Qini Tian's body was swallowed by the bubbles, but her exposed thin shoulders and large snow-white chest were still dazzling. This girl's skin was white and tender just like a newborn baby's. No, she was even better than a newborn baby's. She was noble, perfect and flawless. She had the innocence of a young girl, but also a mature charm like a dragonfly skimming the surface of the water. She was like a red plum tree in the middle of a snowstorm, like a lotus petal on a white dress, perfectly embellished. Fang Yan hadn't seen Qini Tian for a while. She was still the Qini Tian he was familiar with, but she was a little different from what he had imagined. She had grown up a little, matured a little, and her youthful eyes had become a little more mature. Most importantly, she had learned how to seduce a man. Of course, perhaps she didn't even realize that she was doing such a thing. However, a 16-year-old beautiful girl showing her devilish figure in front of a man, even if it was only a small part, was still breathtakingly beautiful. In Fang Yan's eyes, she was a goddess of beauty, but also a devil. Impulsiveness wasn't a devil, only a devil could make people impulsive. Of course, Fang Yan wasn't the kind of person you think he was. You don't understand? Fang Yan raised his eyebrows and said, you don't understand what she's thinking either? Right now, the clan is divided into two factions. Qini Tian didn't hesitate to reveal the internal situation of the Qin clan to Fang Yan. One faction is the faction of benefits, and believes that this is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. Although the Jiang clan is also the Qin clan's opponent, the Jiang clan and the Qin clan both cooperate and oppose each other, and they have maintained this relationship for hundreds of years. It has already been proven that this relationship is beneficial to both sides. Moreover, once war breaks out with the Jiang clan, the Qin clan will also be dragged into the abyss. When two tigers fight, both tigers will suffer. Especially when the Qin family and the general family clash, the result is hard to predict. So, they felt that since they couldn't completely destroy the Jiang family, they might as well let them continue to exist. He would take this opportunity to strengthen his control over Chaoyan technology and make him the most important flag of the Qin family's industrial kingdom. In comparison, they feel that this is more secure and can maximize the benefits, just as I guessed. Fang Yan nodded. Since we can't disappear, we might as well cooperate. As long as the two big fishes don't kill each other, they can continue to devour the smaller fishes around them. Chaoyan and I belong to that small fish. Qini Tian's hands gently stirred the water and said aloud, there are also different voices at home. Some people think that Chaoyan technology can be better managed by Lu Chaoga. Moreover, although the Qin family was controlled by Chaoyan, the Rubik's Cube technology completely belonged to Lu Chaoga. If the Qin family doesn't stand on your side in this matter, it will disappoint you and Lu Chaoga. If that's the case, the Qin family might lose everything and they won't get any benefits. So, it's still in the dispute stage. Fang Yan's eyes lit up and said, since it's still in the dispute stage, it proves that the Qin family hasn't reached an agreement with the general family yet. So, the meeting tomorrow morning is very important. Qini Tian tilted his head and looked at Fang Yan, then said, if you can convince her, the Qin family will stand on your side. If you can't, the result will be hard to predict. Fang Yan nodded and said, I will try my best. Right, I'm going to see her tomorrow. What kind of gift should I prepare? Qini Tian glanced at Fang Yan and said, first, my mom isn't old. Second, you don't need to prepare any gifts. She doesn't need anything? Fang Yan nodded and said, that's true. Women like you are really hard to deal with. Even if I want to give you a gift, I don't know what to give. No, I've already prepared something for you, Qini Tian said. I know what she likes. Fang Yan was a bit embarrassed and said, what do you like? I'll give it to you. I like you. Qin Tian giggled and said, "Do you really want to give it to me? Be serious." Qin Tian stopped laughing. She stared at Fang Yan with a burning gaze and said very seriously, "I like you, do you really want to give it to me?" Coco prepared a sumptuous breakfast, but Fang Yan didn't have much of an appetite. Even after going through so many big battles, Fang Yan was still a bit nervous. What made him nervous was not only the power that woman controlled and the wealth that could rival a country, but also because she was Qin Tian's mother. Qin Tian made him nervous, but didn't his mother make him even more nervous? Not to your taste? Qin Tian held a spoon and elegantly drank the millet porridge that was just cooked, looking at Fang Yan and asked. Coco, who was waiting on the side, became nervous and hurried forward to say, "Mr. Fang, if it's not to your taste, I'll ask the kitchen to prepare another meal. Is there anything in particular you want to eat?" No, it's already very good," Fang Yan said with a smile. He looked at Qin Tian and said, "I'm just thinking about something." "Don't be nervous," Qin Tian said. "I'm not very nervous either." "But you can't not be nervous," Qin Tian said again. "Today's meeting is still very important." Fang Yan put down the bowl of porridge that he had just picked up. Was he going to let her eat or not? Qin Tian was wearing a chiffon dress, looking like a high and mighty princess. Of course, she was indeed the little princess of the Empire of Wealth. After eating a bowl of millet porridge and half a coarse bread, she looked at Fang Yan and said, "Breakfast is made according to your taste, so you'd better eat some." Fang Yan nodded and picked up the bowl again. After breakfast, Eagle Moo was waiting at the gate of the yard to greet them. Seeing Fang Yan and Qin Tian coming out of the villa together, he didn't show the slightest surprise. Fang Yan praised in his heart. It seemed that he must have read the book, Professional Qualities of a Bodyguard. "Good morning, Mr. Fang." Eagle Moo took the initiative to greet Qin Tian and Fang Yan. Qin Tian nodded and took the lead to get into the luxury car. "Good morning, Eagle Moo." Fang Yan greeted Eagle Moo and followed Qin Tian into the car. The car slowly started and drove to the old house of the Qin family. According to Qin Tian's arrangement, Fang Yan would visit his mother there. Fang Yan and Qin Tian had known each other for many years, but it was the first time that he had entered the old house of the Qin family. Seeing the vast mansion on the hillside, Fang Yan couldn't help but have a clearer understanding of the rich and powerful. Turning half of the mountain into one's own backyard was not something that could be done with money, right? The car drove directly into the gate and then drove to a small building on the east side. While Fang Yan was looking at the layout of the garden in the yard, Qin Tian explained, "My mother usually lives in that small building." Fang Yan looked at the small white building. She lived in the easternmost part of the whole garden. East, south, east, west and east were the most important. Under the warm sunlight, the small white building emitted a milky white halo. The car stopped at the door of the small building. Men and women in servants' uniforms came in and out. They moved quickly but they didn't make any sound. Eagle Moo got out of the car and helped open the door. Fang Yan got out and then Qin Tian got out. Qin Tian looked up at the balcony on the second floor of the small building and said to Fang Yan, "Come with me." Then he said to Eagle Moo, "Bring up the gifts that Fang Yan brought." Eagle Moo smiled and agreed. He followed Qin Tian upstairs with 2 bodyguards in black holding several big boxes. In the middle of the living room on the second floor, a woman in a purple dress was sitting. The decoration of the living room was magnificent, but when the woman was in the golden room, she was the most dazzling color. "There is Mount Wu in Badong, and the beautiful face of a goddess." This sentence immediately came to Fang Yan's mind when he first saw the woman. This was a kind of pure beauty, domineering beauty, beauty with heavy makeup. Beauty without any disguise. At the first sight of her, one would think that she was breathtakingly beautiful. The woman was looking down at the documents in her hands. The coffee on the table emitted a strong aroma. A big black cat was lying on the windowsill and basking in the sun. When it saw a stranger coming in, it squinted and turned around. The woman, the cat, the steaming coffee, the furnishings in the room and the butterfly orchids on the balcony, it was like a harmonious and beautiful picture. The woman finally finished reading the documents in her hands. She closed the documents and took off the silver-rimmed glasses on the bridge of her nose. She looked at Qin Tian and Fang Yan and said, "Sit down. This is a gift from Fang Yan to you." Qin Tian pointed at the gift boxes in Eagle Moo's arms and said, "It must be something I like very much, right?" The woman's voice was gentle, but it had a power that was hard to ignore. "It should be." Qin Tian smiled and nodded. The woman looked at Fang Yan and said with a smile, "Thank you for your kindness." "You're welcome." It's what I should do, Fang Yan said shamelessly. Then, what do you think you should call me? The woman took a sip of coffee and looked at Fang Yan. Chapter 784. How should I address her? Boss. Too unskilled. Call her aunt? That sounds too old. Call her aunt? That still sounds too old. Call her sister? Then where should I put Qin Etian? Fang Yan looked at Qin Etian for help, wanting her to give him some reminders. Qin Etian acted as if she didn't see Fang Yan's eyes. She sat next to her mother, picked up the coffee pot, and poured herself a cup of coffee. The color of the coffee was black and the aroma filled the air. Qin Etian's figure was shrouded in smoke, quickly becoming unreal. Teacher, Fang Yan said aloud. Qin Etian spat out the coffee she just drank, then calmly took out a napkin to wipe the corner of her mouth. This girl had an elegance and calmness that didn't match her age. This wasn't a child carefully cultivated by a noble family, but rather something that came from the bones. She was very much like her mother. Li Xinyan looked at Fang Yan in surprise and said, Teacher? You're my teacher, Fang Yan said with a serious expression. You're a senior in the field of business, a role model for our lives. There are many things I need to learn from you. Li Xinyan stirred the coffee in the cup with a beautiful steel spoon, casually looked at Fang Yan and said, Is our relationship only limited to that of teacher and student? Fang Yan squinted her eyes and smiled, then said, The relationship between teacher and student is not simple. Our Wuxia has an old saying, a teacher for a day, a father for life. Our teacher is like half a parent to us. People at that time already knew how to respect their teacher, but are people now not as polite as the ancients? You mean? Li Xinyan picked up the coffee cup and took a sip, then said, I'm half a mother to you? You could say that. Fang Yan nodded. Of course you're too young. You look like Yi Tian's sister. Plus, I was a teacher myself, so I have a special feeling for the profession. Whenever someone calls me Mr. Fang, I feel that it's my happiest moment. Li Xinyan glanced at Qin Etian and said, Etian, I want to have a private conversation with Fang Yan. Qin Etian nodded and stood up with the coffee cup in his hand. I'm going downstairs to look at the pigeons. With that, she turned and walked out of the door. After Qin Etian left, Li Xinyan looked at Fang Yan and said, Teacher, a teacher for a day, a father for life. I quite like this title. Thank you. Fang Yan nodded and said, There's an old saying in Wuxia, a son-in-law has half a son. Fang Yan, you've been a teacher before, so you should be familiar with this saying, right? I'm not a stranger. Fang Yan's expression became solemn. After Qin Etian left, it meant that the negotiation between him and Li Xinyan had entered the real stage. But what profound meaning did she have when she said that? Fang Yan, why should I help you? Li Xinyan looked at Fang Yan and suddenly changed the topic. Why should I help you? This was a very simple question, but it was also a very difficult one. Fang Yan and the Qin family were comrades and partners. Chao Yan's interests were everyone's interests. The Jiang family attacking Chao Yan was the same as attacking the Qin family. Wasn't this a reason for the Qin family to help? However, if the Qin family stood by and did nothing, they could reap greater benefits. The Jiang family dared to attack Fang Yan and Chao Yan technology, but they didn't dare to start a war with the Qin family at the same time. These giant families were deeply rooted and intertwined with each other. There was me and you and me. It was very difficult to completely separate them. Moreover, she asked why I should help you. Fang Yan watched as Li Xinyan stirred the coffee cup with a steel spoon, and after a moment of silence he said, How many spoonfuls of sugar do you want to add to your coffee? Half a spoonful of sugar and half a spoonful of milk. Li Xinyan looked at Fang Yan and answered aloud. I'm the half a spoonful of sugar that you want to add to your coffee. Fang Yan said with a smile. Even if you don't add that half a spoonful of sugar, a slightly bitter coffee can still be drunk. However, if you add this half a spoonful of sugar and half a spoonful of milk, it will be easier to drink and you can also enjoy the process. Are you trying to convince me? Li Xinyan looked at Fang Yan with bright eyes and asked. Yes. Fang Yan nodded. A person like you doesn't lack anything and you also have everything. You can be compassionate to all living beings or you can be high and mighty and not care about anything. However, having reached such a position, all you think and do is to ask for peace of mind, right? Are you comparing me to Guanyin Bodhisattva? The woman said with a smile. I'm just an ordinary woman, not an otherworldly goddess like you're talking about. Don't think about putting me on a pedestal and making me unable to step down. What you're after isn't just material but spiritual satisfaction. I can't use benefits to convince you because the Jiang family can give you greater benefits. We can only give you 1/3 of Chaoyan technology, but the Jiang family can give you the entire Chaoyan technology. It's not their thing anyway. I can't use emotions to persuade you either. Qin Yitian is my student, and I used to be Qin Yitian's teacher. Because of this relationship, I have such a relationship with the Qin family. However, I can't use the relationship between me and Qin Yitian to ask you to do this. If I do that, then our relationship will have deteriorated. Li Xinyan pursed her lips and smiled. You think I'm doing this to fulfill my spiritual satisfaction? Is that right? So I'm going to lead the Qin family to contend against a century-old family like the Jiang family? Fang Yen said frankly, it's like this. Also, our character is worthy of your trust. Character? You don't lack capable people, but you lack trustworthy people. I'm sure you know very well that Chaoyan technology can only be maximized in the hands of me and Lu Chaoga. But the Jiang family promised that as long as we remain silent on this matter, we'll be able to gain control of the entire Chaoyan technology. Being generous at the expense of others, I'm better than him at this kind of thing. How about, you think about it, we'll get rid of the Jiang family together and then give the entire Jiang family to you. See, isn't it even more tempting to speak like this? The Jiang family is worth a lot more than Chaoyan technology, right? Li Xinyan looked at Fang Yen with a serious expression. Her beautiful eyes had the power to move one's soul. Fang Yen, I'm a businessman, and the most important thing for a businessman is profit. Don't use personal feelings and spiritual pursuit to negotiate with me. That makes me feel like it's child's play. I'm sorry. Fang Yen apologized sincerely. Just as I said, compared to what the Jiang family can give you, I don't have any benefits that can move you. In some aspects, we're naturally at a disadvantage, because we're a part of the benefits. However, in some aspects, you also have an advantage that others can't compare to. What aspect? My daughter likes you. Teacher Li, I don't want to use my relationship with Yitian to ask you to do such a thing. This isn't about borrowing $1 million or $2 million, nor is it about buying or selling a house. It's about the struggle between the Qin family and the Jiang family. If you do this because of Yitian, it will put you and the Qin family in a difficult position, and it will also put Yitian in a difficult position in the Qin family. After a pause, Fang Yen said in a low voice, I hope that I have some value as a person, enough for you to be willing to do something for me, and I will remember this help. A drop of water will be returned with a spring of water. Fang Yen said this with sincerity, but Li Xinyan still shook his head. Fang Yen, I'm a businessman and also a mother. As a businessman, I value the benefits that I can get. As a mother, I want to see my daughter live a happy life. If you become my son-in-law, wouldn't it be natural for a mother-in-law to help her son-in-law? At that time, no one inside or outside the family would dare to make any sarcastic remarks. Even if it's the Jiang family, if you become my son-in-law, would they really dare to bully you like this? Teacher Li, Fang Yen called out in surprise. He didn't expect Li Xinyan to make such a request, and even more so, he didn't expect Li Xinyan to say it so directly. She had never seen him before, so how could she be at ease, willing to hand over her daughter to him? Everything happened so suddenly that Fang Yan's mind instantly changed. Teacher Li, you still don't know me well enough. This is the first time we've met. How can you be at ease to hand over your daughter to me? I believe in Yitian's judgment, Li Xinyan said. She's very much like me when I was young. When I set my sights on someone, I wouldn't be too far off. Back then she suggested me to invest in Chaoyan technology and I listened. Look now, how many people outside are envious of my investment judgment back then? But this kind of thing can't be forced. Yitian and I, Fang Yen clenched his teeth and said, are just normal teacher-student relationships. She's my student and also my friend. I can't use this kind of thing to make a deal. Li Xinyan thoughtfully looked at Fang Yen and said, Fang Yen, has your head been bitten by a pig before? Was she scolding him? Or was she hit by the car door when she got off the car? She was indeed scolding him. How could she scold him so casually? If not, why would you reject my proposal? Li Xinyan sneered. Could it be that you think my daughter isn't good enough for you? Chapter 785. In the hearts of all parents, their children are the smartest, the prettiest, the most filial, and the most sensible. We often see uncles and aunties complaining about their children while chatting with their neighbors, but if the onlookers nodded in agreement or accidentally dozed off, a fierce battle is inevitable. Let's not talk about Qin Tian's own excellence, just his excellence in the eyes of his parents has reached an astonishing level. For example, if Qin Tian could get 100 points in the hearts of his parents, it would be 1,000 points. If Qin Tian could get 1,000 points in the hearts of Li Xinyan, it would be 10,000 points or even 1,000,000 points. Any successful person is extremely proud. Li Xinyan just said that Qin Tian is like him when he was young. Then, is the young me not worthy of the current Fang Yan? Fang Yan's rejection not only denied Qin Tian, but also denied the young Li Xinyan. This is an insult that is more unacceptable than death. Therefore, Li Xinyan didn't care about his feelings and directly asked Fang Yan if his daughter is not worthy of him. I didn't mean that, Fang Yan said with some embarrassment. Just like his grandfather Fang Hui said, his IQ is very high but his EQ is really a problem. Especially when it comes to love between men and women, his way of solving the problem becomes childish and clumsy. Qin Tian is very good, I am not worthy of her. Huh? The sneer on Li Xinyan's face became more obvious and said, she is a good person, so I am not worthy of her? This kind of rejection is indeed more advanced and it sounds more comfortable. I have a girlfriend. Fang Yan looked at Li Xinyan and said, there is no need to hide this kind of thing and it can't be hidden. Fang Yan already has an emotional entanglement with Lu Chaoge. If he and Qin Tian, why is it so troublesome? He just wanted to keep his life. He just wanted to live well. Why did it have to involve so many painful and tangled things? He didn't want to hurt Yiro, he didn't want to hurt Lu Xiaoge, and he definitely didn't want to hurt Qin Tian. But the way things went, he had hurt everyone. Fang Yan was a kind person. He had the craftiness and boldness of an ancient martial arts family. He had also inherited the versatility of his mother's scholarly family. He was smart, two-faced, vengeful, and merciless. However, he also bemoaned the state of the universe and pitied the fate of mankind. He was willing to fight and die for his country and people. Most importantly, the Fang family was sparsely populated, with only one heir for several generations. Other than the elders in his family who took care of him, there were only Li Xiaotian and Ruan Qian, a group of companions of similar age from Swallow Dock, and the two juniors Fang Yingying and Fang Haohan accompanying him. He regarded them as his family, as his brothers. His mother, Lu Wan, often taught him to be kind to those who truly loved him, so he was filial to his grandfather, loved his parents and tried his best to take care of and protect everyone around him. Even when he was teaching in Huaqing and saw Lu Chaoge being bullied, he couldn't help but help her. However, because of Lu Chaoge's betrayal, his enthusiasm was met with a cold current. The relationship between the two instantly fell to the freezing point. However, because of Lu Chaoge's efforts to save him, coupled with the interest of Chaoyan technology, they restored their normal friendship. If Lu Chaoge hadn't betrayed him that time, what would their relationship be like? Would they have become an enviable immortal couple? However, there were no ifs in this world. He met Yiro and he also fell in love with her. Yiro also loved him, and they became lovers who had a mutual affinity. Things had gone in a big circle and in the end, it was about his relationship with Lu Xiaoge. Lu Chaoge became his woman. He already had Yiro and he had a relationship with Lu Chaoge. It was already very annoying. Before he had time to solve it, the Jiang family's attack came like a flood. Qin Tian wanted to marry me? It had to be said that this was a request that no man in the world could refuse. The first beauty of Yan Jing, the most outstanding investor of the younger generation of Wuxia, one of the controllers of the Qin family's large industry, and the most favorable candidate for the future heir of the family, marrying such a woman, wasn't this something that all men dreamt of? With Qin Tian's ability and the Qin family's wealth, even if Fang Yan slept on a pile of money in the future, it was very likely that he would be crushed to death by a large amount of money. Besides, Fang Yan was not the kind of boy toy that people said. He was also capable and he had his own pursuit of martial arts. If Fang Yan married Qin Tian would earn money to support the family, and Fang Yan would be responsible for being as beautiful as a flower. No, climbing the heavenly law. He didn't have to deal with his own affairs because everything could be handled by Qin Tian. He didn't have to deal with countless enemies, because no one dared to offend the son-in-law of the Qin family. He could focus on martial arts, seek the way and polish his heart of Tai Chi. How could he refuse such a life? However, he already had Yiro. He had met Yiro. So the only thing he could do was to refuse. I have a girlfriend. Fang Yan looked at Li Xinyan and said. He repeated again. I love her very much and she loves me very much. Is it Yiro from the Yi family? Li Xinyan asked aloud. Fang Yan nodded and said, it's Yiro from the Yi family. We promised to marry each other, so I can't accept your kindness. Qini Tian is very outstanding and Qini Tian is the most beautiful girl I've ever seen. However, I can't accept her love anymore. This makes me very grateful but also very guilty. Could it be that in your heart, my daughter is not as good as the daughter of the Yi family? There's no way to compare this. Fang Yin said with a serious face. I met Yi Rou first. So I can only choose Yi Rou. Yi Tian is very outstanding and so is Wen Rou. They are both very outstanding girls. However, since I've already fallen in love with Yi Rou, how can I fall in love with Qini Tian? If I really accept your request, won't you doubt my sincerity? Li Xinyan put down the already cold coffee cup and said, I do have this worry. If you immediately agree to my request, I will find a way to destroy your relationship with Yi Tian, and even help the Jiang family destroy you. A woman's heart is the most poisonous. Just a moment ago we were just having a nice chat over tea, but one careless word and we'll be destroyed by this extremely beautiful woman. There's really no sense of security when dealing with people from big families. But you refused. Li Xinyan looked at Fang Yen with a smile and said, You refused. I can see your sincerity, I can see your feelings for Yi Rou. Of course I can also see your feelings for Yi Tian. Fang Yen was shocked and said, Yi Tian and I are only friends. I think of her as student? Sister? Friend? Li Xinyan chuckled and said, Which man in this world wouldn't be moved by a girl like Yi Tian? Some people are cowardly and incompetent, so much so that even looking at her is blasphemy. Some people feel ashamed and don't dare to take another step closer. There are also a few decent pursuers with good character and family backgrounds, but Yi Tian herself doesn't like them. To tell you the truth, back then the Qin family and the Jiang family did indeed have plans to unite by marriage. The Jiang family's Jiang Junling is excellent in every aspect and has a good reputation. What's rare is that he's infatuated with Yi Tian, so we wanted to bring the two of them together. That way when the Qin and Jiang families cooperate, it would change the entire business landscape of Wuxia. But Jiang Junling was defeated by you and Yi Tian fell in love with you. If that's the case, as a mother, I can only help my own daughter. In love, a woman must maintain her composure. But as a mother, I don't have to do that. Li Xinyan looked at Fang Yen and said, Fang Yen, if you refuse me, I'll also refuse you. If you accept my goodwill, I'll accept your sincerity. How about it? You can't make a deal with this kind of thing, Fang Yen said painfully. If I say it's possible, then it's possible, Li Xinyan said with a cold expression. What's your answer? Fang Yen got up from his chair, slightly bowed to Li Xinyan and said, It's my honor to be able to meet Teacher Li today. I hope I'll have the chance to visit again in the future. Saying so, Fang Yen turned around and walked outside. Li Xinyan looked at Fang Yan's back for a long time, then softly said, What a man with a backbone. Qini Tian walked out from the dark curtain with a pigeon cage in his hand, looked at Li Xinyan and said, Xiao Bai is getting thinner and thinner. Is it because her appetite hasn't been good lately? Don't give her too much food. Once she's full, she won't want to move anymore. Qini Tian sat down next to his mother, looked at her and said, Why do you have to force him like this? You know it's going to be like this. Li Xinyan looked at Qini Tian and asked, If I didn't force him like this, do you think you'd have any hope? No, Qini Tian said very honestly. He made it very clear that the first person he met was Yi Rou. If that's the case, what's the point of me forcing him or not? We're still friends. Qini Tian said with a smile. Even if you like a man, you don't have to be together. That's what ordinary women think. Li Xinyan said with a firm voice. The man my daughter likes, I must be with them. I don't want you to be alone. I don't want you to suffer any grievances. Because you're my daughter. Whether in business or in love, we never compromise. You're tuning in to the Han Li's Wuxia Adventures YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.